Namaskar. This is Professor Agarwal, and I'm happy to welcome everybody on board. We will be starting the meeting now, and we have almost everybody joined us now. We are waiting for 3 more guests today. They would be joining us. 2 of them would be joining us. I spoke to them earlier today. Joshua would be joining us a little late. Banu Murthy would be joining us later as well because he is in a meeting and he will be joining us. And then Georges, I spoke with him yesterday. He said he will be joining. There is some internet problem of Wi-Fi in Israel. So he said that they would, but he will be joining in with us later today to give the perspective of research happening in Israel as well. I'm very happy to welcome you all, my guests. We would not have Samir Brahmachari, who will not be joining us. He's got something urgent in the family come up. Yamini should be also joining us in another 5 minutes or so. The rest of my guests are here, so I begin my deliberations for today on the topic of how to research, publish, and perish. We have had about 380 plus registrations today for the webinar, but let's see how many of them are able to join because we are on a Zoom secure platform and it requires some other formalities to be done before someone can join. So we have had many people who do not comply with or do not register themselves. They are unable to join in. Before we begin, I would like to give a disclaimer that we are observing all norms as prescribed by Ministry of Home Affairs for conducting Zoom meetings. And hence, we will be keeping all the audios and videos off for everybody, except for the speakers, which we will go one by one. And we will go in the list as we announced. So we will initially have the opening address, which will be done by Professor Dr. J.D. Agarwal, our chairman and editor-in-chief Finance India. Followed by, we will have the address of Jacky, who has joined us from MACAU, who has been the Dean for University of MACAU. After Jacky, we will have Mukul give his address. Each of these addresses would be about 10 to 15 minutes, and I would request if all the speakers could keep it within that time frame so that we can have more time for question and answers, which could be there from the audience. Then followed by Mukul, we will have Joshua, who should be joining, as I said, in another half an hour. Joshua is the professor at NYU Stern and also the editor for Journal of Law, Finance and Accounting. Then we will have Banu. Banu also had some meetings, but I understand she's rescheduled some of them and she's there with us. In case she has to go in between, she's most welcome, but we would like her to stay with us. Banu is currently the acting chair and professor of finance at the Dokuz İlua University in Izmir in Turkey. She is also affiliate professor in the Slovenian University and has been editor of Emerald Journals. Samir, as I said, Brahmachari is not joining us today. He was the Director General of CSIR and professor now. Professor N.R. Bharumurthy is professor of finance at NIPFP and also runs a fund which actually promotes research in the country, economic research in the country on econometrics, and is head of that association. He is a man in public finance. Then we have Dr. Bhimaraya Metri. Metri is an old friend of mine. He is now heading as the director of IIM Tiruchirappalli, and he is a man of human capital, human resource, who's built up a large number of young men. And as you can see, he's going to do a talk structure because I see board. I don't know if it's a division or a board behind him, but I see a wide screen. So I thought maybe he's going to teach us through the wide screen like we learn in the classroom. He's still liking to do that, but whatever way he chooses, it's his choice, but we would love to hear him as well. Followed by Metri, we will have Professor Dr. Yamini Agarwal, who is currently heading as Professor and Director of IIF Business School of AKTU and Dean Research at the Institute, Indian Institute of Finance, and Associate Editor of Finance India. Followed by Yamini, we will have the valedictory address given by His Excellency, the Weerakoon, who has been with me on the board of Banking Frontiers and a couple of other organizations, and he was the Deputy Governor between 2000 to 2009 of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And he is also a columnist with the Daily Financial Times in Sri Lanka. Apart from that, he has also Director of Economic Research, and he is also an adjunct faculty at the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. He is also a visiting professor at various local universities in Sri Lanka, and has, as I said, been writing for the Financial Times, called the Daily Financial Times in Sri Lanka in the last 10 years, and so on and so forth. He is a prominent person, and he has been a central banker, has implemented various policies, not only being the head of research, which he has been at the central bank. Followed by that, we will have the Professor Dr. Saurabh Agarwal. He will also give his brief inputs, which I will ask him to give his brief input before I request the valedictory address, but then he will, at the end, summarize the whole session as well in terms of the inputs given by. Before he summarizes, we will open the house for questions, which will be there from the audience to ask questions. I am very happy to welcome people from across the globe, people from UAE. I see from people from UAE and other countries as well, and also some good friends and colleagues from who are chairmen and directors of institutions. I see some people from media as well. I like to welcome the people from media as well who have joined us today. Now, before we begin, I would like to introduce, as I always do, our guest of honor today, our opening speaker. And to do that, I would like to take you to, just a second, please. I would like to take you to his brief bio sketch, from where I would like to begin his introduction. So I will take another 5 minutes to introduce, and then we will move on to the address by Professor Agarwal, and then the other speakers as we pronounce the names in sequence. Thank you, everyone. I would like to make a last disclaimer before I introduce Professor Agarwal. The views presented here are those of the individuals here with us, both as speakers and the moderator, and they are not the views of the institutions they represent. So they should be taken in personal capacity. I have requested everyone to kindly throw light on how to research, publish or perish with certain basic questions in their mind. Now I would like to introduce our opening speaker, Professor Agarwal. Professor Agarwal has 2 honorary doctorates from Tashkent Finance Institute and Doctor Honor Causa from St. Iswan University in Hungary, and he did his PhD from Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Professor Agarwal is Distinguished Professor of Finance and is the founder and chairman of Indian Institute of Finance and the chief editor of Finance India. He is the leading economist and financial expert. In the past, he has taught at Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi, Indian Institute of Technology, Ahmedabad University, Nigeria, and Cleveland State University, United States of America. He has been a visiting professor to various universities and institutions around the world. He has written over 15 books, authored almost over 6,000 pages, edited over 125, now 130 volumes of Finance India, more than 30,000 pages, published more than 125 research papers, authored more than 32 book reviews, 500 case studies and working papers. He has been a supervisor to several PhDs in MTech system designs, MBAs, MSc Finance dissertations, and various senior government officials sponsored by the Government of India on study leave at the Indian Institute of Finance. He has lectured more than 500 NDPs and trained more than 10,000 senior executives from government and industry, delivering more than 600 radio talks, TV interviews, and economic issues. He has organized, participated in more than 1,000 seminars and conferences world over, and either as a keynote speaker, chairman of the session, or a participant. He has assisted more than 100 institutions, universities, and organizers globally as an expert, invited to address conferences, sign MOUs, and deliver lectures in over 50 countries. His research writings, budget speech, talks, and interviews on air and All India Radio and televisions, including Lok Sabha TV, Rajya Sabha TV, and Delhi Durukan, have had an important bearing on the government policies, including changes in the budget time change from 5 p.m. to 4 noon. His students hold senior positions, ministerial positions in Government of India, state governments, politics, judiciary, bureaucracy, legal media, accounting, economics, business, and industry of various universities internationally. He has contributed significantly to promote the field of finance in the last over 3 decades and a half through education research. One of the most important contributions is to found the prestigious Indian Institute of Finance in 1987 without government aid. The institute has become a center of excellence and a base of scholarship in the last 31 years. IIF Library has over 55,000 volumes of books and over 50,000 working papers with us, more than 1,000 technical journals. It is a unique and solely devoted to developing the field of financial economics. The financial economics, which was relatively unknown, got a boost and attained a place of prominence, shifting the focus of economics from welfare orientation, state subsidy, high taxes, controls of financial economics, market orientation, and wealth generation. Another contribution is to develop the quarterly journal of Finance India in the international level to promote research in finance. The journal started in 1987 and is considered to be a leading journal of finance and has been rated 3rd best worldwide by American Statistical Association and also SJIF index factor out of about 22,000 journals in various disciplines worldwide with a very high impact factor. It has on its editorial board some many prominent experts from all over the world, including Nobel laureates Franco Modigliani, Martin F. Miller, Robert Merton, Robert Mundell, Douglas North. In fact, a couple of our speakers, George's Jacky, also have been our editorial board members, He has single-handedly, with support of the editorial board, edited more than 130 volumes. Each is about 300 or 400 pages. Dr. Agarwal is an original thinker and has practical bias. Professor Agarwal's research indicates that theories and techniques of finance and economics based on postulates of single objectives give erroneous and irrational results and have become outdated in the present era. Keeping in view this, he has developed several new models and theories of field of financial economics. His models have presented a new perspective to the theory of finance. Some of the works include goal programming model for capital budgeting decisions with priority structures, stochastic goal programming, model of capital budgeting decision under risk and uncertainty, lexicographical rank of multiple goals, fuzzy goal programming, models of capital budgeting decisions, goal programming models of working capital for business firms. His works have been cited widely and are in use by various organizations and governments. In fact, some of his recent work, jointly co-authored with me and other professors in the area of National Labour Exchange, are in consideration by Ministry of Labour as well as Niti Aayog, which is the one formed after Planning Commission was dissolved in the country. Apart from that, the work on the theory of wealth and creation of cryptocurrency by central banks is also under consideration by the Reserve Bank of India, as they constituted a committee immediately within 3 months of our work being published and presented worldwide. We are happy that they are considering, various governments have considered our work, including the KYC norm, budget time change, Kisan credit card, and others, which he has been part of, and the post office banking, which took place in 2018 as well. He has won several citations and awards and quoted widely in national dailies. He is the editorial board member of several international journals, and current research interests are in the area of corporate finance and public finance and international finance. I will now go to Professor Agarwal, and but I must tell every attendee here, everyone who is participating, each one of our speakers today, has a similar background. All of them carry the same background as Professor Agarwal. There is no difference. The order of sequence has been just given by me in this order of acceptances which I received from people, and I keeping in their time schedules in mind, but there is no level. All of them had similar structures. I will not be able to introduce everybody like that, but I will introduce most of you with the introduction. And as I said, we will move to Professor Agarwal now, and I will request Professor Agarwal to unmute himself, and he has a presentation to kindly start his presentation so that we can begin the program. I am putting Professor Agarwal in spotlight, so I will do for everybody else in due course. I am muting the professors as of now. I will unmute the rest of them once we go one-on-one to each professor. Welcome, professors. Now request the begin or how to do this as the opening address for the webinar workshop on and faculty development program today.
Good evening, everybody. It's a matter of pleasure for me to welcome you all to this webinar. I'm glad to share with you, as the moderator has already told you, that there are as many as 10 experts from almost all over the world, as many as 7 countries who would be speaking to you and also taking up your questions, if any, in the next 2.5 hours or so. This will really be a great learning for those who are researchers. It's the institute has done really tremendously well, purely with a view to help researchers. Now let us look at how to research. First of all, we need to really understand what is research. Before that, we go to that, how people feel about research. I must say, research is like searching a Sanjeevani booty. Without knowing what is Sanjeevani booty in a thick forest with similar herbal plants. And then ultimately, whether he is able to search Sanjeevani booty or not depends upon a number of factors. It is also, in my opinion, like searching sandalwood in a thick forest harboring snakes. Afraid of snakes, one picks up sandalwood from nearby trees smelling like sandalwood, and at times satisfied, and at times he continues with his search. If we really look at how people feel, Plato and Manu talks about an inherent difficulty in research. If not a paradox of doing research, that can be paraphrased in the following way. If you know what you are searching for, why do you search for it? I think it's a very important question. If you already know, then why do you need to search for it? If you have already found it, if you do not know what you are searching for, what are you searching for? That's a very important issue. However, irrespective of all this, research makes great contribution to a person, to his career, to his life, and to the nation. Now let us say, how to do research. The first question, which is very important in my opinion, is to identify or know what is research. Research is creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the existing stock of knowledge or proposing a new theory totally opposite to existing knowledge, which is something very important, like the Galileo has done it. Then similarly, Archimedes have found out. It was a spontaneous kind of research which was found out by Archimedes. Similarly, when we found the apple is falling on earth, it was incidental, but it was a great research because it has become the basis of the law of gravitational pull, where the people could, the modern India, modern world could send, the spacecrafts. In my opinion, it is systematic inquiry or examination, especially investigation or experimentation, aimed at discovery and interpretation of facts, revision and accepted theories, revision of accepted theories. We should not really just proceed in the same way and the same line, or laws in the light of new facts, or practical application of such new or revised theories or laws. It is adding a brick or a floor to the existing knowledge or a building in a specific field, or discarding the existing knowledge and building a new theory or set of principles in a systematic way with logic giving a scientific explanation. It is both constructing new building or renovating the buildings as such. It involves the collection, organization, and analysis of information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue. Why research? That's an important thing. There may be several reasons for doing research. First and foremost thing is it triggers one's brain to contribute or benefit society. Of course, adding to one's own career as well. It adds to our knowledge. When we say our knowledge, it is the knowledge of all those who are concerned with that discipline, as well as the nation or the world. Research has no boundaries, no geographical boundaries as such. Research improves practice. Research informs policy debates. It also provides information to policy makers. Then forms of research. There can be different forms of research, in my opinion. Basic research, fundamental or original research. Primarily, it is thought-based. The original research is to produce new knowledge rather than to present the existing ones in a new form. It must be supported by systematic logic. For instance, the Galileo saying that Earth revolves around the sun, despite the fact that the whole world was against him and his opinion or his research. Later on, it has been accepted. Of course, during his lifetime, he was hanged by the king of that place. The second one is applied research, or one can say empirical research, based on collection of data from primary sources or secondary sources, analyze, interpret, and conclude using techniques, statistical techniques, mathematical techniques, etc. Then documentation research, that is a policy research, which is another form of research which is generally pursued. Ordinarily, international agencies, governments, states generally adopt policy research. In the forms of research continued, we find scientific research is a systematic way of gathering data and harnessing curiosity. This research provides scientific information and theories for the explanation of the nature and the properties of the world. It makes practical application possible. We have seen so many researches all over the world which have come over in the last 2000 years. At the same time, I must say that the rishis in India, 5,000 in the last 6,000 years, they went to the forest, concentrated on meditation, concentration, both for their own knowledge and writing various Vedas and Shastras for the purposes and the benefit of the society. Then it is based upon, the scientific research is based upon observation of a phenomenon, hypothesis, testing, and concluding. Sector-wise research based upon agriculture research, historical research, marketing research, etc. Then we have objective of the research. A researcher needs to identify his research. First of all, what is the purpose? The goal of the research process is to produce new knowledge or deepen understanding of a topic or issue. This process takes mainly three forms. Exploratory research, which helps to identify and define a problem or question. Constructive research, which tests theories and proposes solutions to a problem or question. Empirical research, which tests the feasibility of a solution. using empirical evidence. Then we have to have research design. There are two major types of empirical research design. One we say is qualitative research, often in the area of philosophy, psychology, the qualitative research is done. Even in economics, at an earlier stages, it was a qualitative research rather than quantitative. The second research design is quantitative research. We identify a issue, then based on a pick up the sampling, or based upon sampling or universe, we use statistical techniques, correlation, multiple regression, and we carry out various forms of tests like t-test, chi-square test, and so on and so forth. And then try to conclude something. We also use mathematical techniques, operations research techniques like linear programming, goal programming, and then of course the high level of computers and the softwares available with us help us to analyze volumes of data using some of these techniques. I think that is something which really facilitate our work. Now the question is how to do research. First and foremost thing is identify or specify the objective of research. What is the objective? Is it just to obtain a degree? Or is it a keen research to contribute something? This is a very important issue which needs to be really identified clearly. These days, or even for quite some time, I think there are people running after obtaining a PhD rather than doing research. There are cases which have come to the knowledge that they buy research thesis, change a few pages, and submit, get degree. And such PhD theses are generally lying in libraries. And then they're decorating the libraries. And of course, they get the degree. Now, it's an unfortunate state. It is happening. The other thing is the person is very keen to do research. And therefore, he needs to identify his objective. Now, when he is doing that, he needs to understand and identify what are the possible constraints within which he is to work. At times, there are legal constraints. At times, there are constraints of time. At times, there are constraints in terms of finances, and so on and so forth. He must understand about the constraints and must identify them before landing into a difficult situation. The next step is to identification of research topic or problem. This is one of the issues which generally is a very serious issue. Because when you are identifying a research topic, if you fail to identify a wrong topic, then halfway you might try to go back and again do something else. Search for research for topic or search for topic is a very important thing. Identify a university, possible research supervisor. Most often people do not bother about it. There are some universities which are specialized in a given field, and they are very well known in that area. Similarly, there are some research supervisors who really make a great contribution. They help you, they facilitate your work, and they guide you more appropriately. At times, one may come across situations where either the university or the possible research supervisor either does not have much interest in a given area or does not have necessary capability to do it, but he at the university or the possible research supervisor accept a researcher to proceed with a research topic. Now there, I think it would be a fiasco for a candidate. Another thing is make a primary inquiry, searching literature in the field. Searching a topic can best be done only if you are carrying out a primary inquiry, searching literature in your field of research. Because that is how much extensive you do that extensiveness will itself determine and decide a right kind of topic you have in mind. Discuss with your peers. or possible research supervisor that this is the topic you intend to do, so that they can guide you whether this topic is right or not right, whether there is how much work has already been done in this area, whether you will be able to contribute much or you may not be able to contribute much. Then immediately after that, once this is being done, conduct a literature review. That is, prepare an extensive bibliography, which should run into 25 to 30 pages, so that you may know that in that particular area, how much research has been done around the world by various researchers. Pick up some of those researches and study them very carefully, identify various issues which can be possible or the gap which exists despite 30 pages of literature. Each page may have something around 30 to 35 references, which would mean about 1200 to 1500 bibliography. Finance India publishes in each one of its issues a bibliography. It has already published more than 130 bibliographies. Each bibliography is an area of economics, finance, management, accounting, and so on and so forth. Each bibliography published in Finance India is of about 25 to 30 pages that can really be very helpful to any candidate who is pursuing research in this particular area. Then we have determining the specific research questions, prepare a questionnaire, discuss that questionnaire with people, carry on a pilot study about the questionnaire. May not necessarily be that the questionnaire needs to be revised at a later stage. Specify a conceptual framework and feasible set of hypotheses. That is another important. If you have gone through all these steps which I have discussed just now, I think then it is easy for you to develop or specify a conceptual framework and feasible set of hypotheses. Choice of a research methodology using primary or secondary data is very, very important. What kind of research methodology? You happen to choose a wrong methodology, then at a later stage you might find it is too late to really change. Discuss it. Choice of a technology, research methodology, discuss with your supervisor. Discuss with other people who are researchers, peers, and then decide about the feasibility. You must have capability to do this. At the same time, you may try to acquire sufficient or adequate knowledge in that particular area. Then check the availability of data, which is equally important, because data is not available, then there will be difficulty and you may find it difficult. Now, that is, I think these are the issues which I thought I must share with you. Now, how to publish, maybe I will come a little later, because I have already exhausted my about 10 or 12 minutes, which I was supposed to be speaking to you. Now, I think we have very prominent researchers who have made significant contributions in the field of research from from 7 countries. I think it will be a privilege both for me, for participants, and to listen to them. And I think that is something which is very, very essential. And I'm glad once again, to welcome you all to this webinar. So at the end of the webinar, you will all benefit tremendously. At the end, if there is enough time, I will speak about how to publish, as I have been the chief editor of Finance India for the last 32 years. I have also been on the editorial board of various journals internationally. I have also started as far back as 1979, editing the Indian Journal of Accounting, and changed and shaped it. Keeping in view all my experiences, I might try to speak, if there is enough time, how to publish in a peer Scopus Index, ABDC Index journal, so that you may get benefit, because the articles published by you, once published in some prominent journal, very well accepted world over, then it will be difficult for the supervisor to reject your thesis or send for revision, because that has any journal which is a peer-reviewed journal is generally each article is reviewed, blind reviewed at least by 3 experts. If it is published, then naturally there are some supervisors who encourage, some universities also encourage that you must publish at least 2 to 3 articles from the thesis which you are working on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure speaking with you. I hope it is beneficial for you.
Thank you, Professor Agarwal. And now we will move, and we will, I hope, have time at the end maybe to have your address on the balance presentation which you had. And now I move on to my first speaker, the editorial address to be delivered by Jacky So, first one. And then before I like to introduce Jacky, he's been an old friend of mine at Syracuse at a conference where Alan Young had invited me. And since then, it's been 2000. We met, and we've known before, but we met in 2000. And since then, we have been friends. He's the Dean of University of Macau Business School. He's the DNU Chair Professor of Finance at the Faculty of Business Administration in Macau. As I said, all our speakers today have the same credentials, all with about 45, 50 years and more of experience, both in public policy and really implementing it. Not just in terms of research, but actually implementing research. He's done his PhD in international finance and international business from Ohio State University. Did his MBA in finance and minor in management in Western Illinois University, BSc in Major from Hong Kong Baptist University, again a very old and prominent university in Hong Kong, and then certified program in MBA. He's done various research positions. He's been a chair professor with the Faculty of Business University of Macau. Prior to this, he was a chair professor and distinguished professor of finance at Texas A&M University, as he is one of the richest universities in the United States, given that a lot of oil money comes into Texas University. So he has been there from 2004 to 9 and professor of finance at Southern Illinois University. He's also a scholar and professor at Federal Reserve Bank in 2003 and visiting professor of finance at City University of Hong Kong and other universities, as you can see. And he's got honors and professions from the banks as the professor, then Asia Pacific American Heritage Award, Distinguished Alumnus Award, recognition, honorable recognition competition, and where so. Yeah, he's serving currently on various committees of University of Macau, General Affairs, and he is involved with lot of public services as well, almost all of them. As I said, the Small Business Development Center of New York Advisory Board is on the Weerakoon Development Foundation Board of Directors, Academy of Entrepreneurship Finance Advisory Board, Journal of Global Finance Editorial Board, Northern American Journal, Journal of International Business, and so on and so forth. He's done large, and I can go large number of papers which have been published world over in some of the top journals. Apart from that, the now I move to Jacky, and I will be unmuting him and putting him in spotlight in just a second. Yes. With that brief introduction, I hope I have tried to do, but you know, anything else here from almost every for anything 20, 25, 30 years. But let me tell you, my dear friends, I requested them for anything, never said no to me.
Okay.
Of them. Jacky.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, some of the, I guess the sound have some issue there. You hear me okay, right? All of you hear me now? No, I cannot hear you. I mean,
Jack.
Yeah. I think the sound have some issue, but did you guys hear me?
Yes.
I cannot hear any one of you. So, but Your beginning introduction is okay, but the last part, I miss it.
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me, then I'm going to go ahead, okay? So I guess thanks for having me, and also thanks IIF for the opportunity to share, I guess, my opinion and experience about research, especially research in higher education with all of you. And I'm going to follow more or less the same format that Amin asked me to kind of follow, which is more or less answer some of the questions and about research. But then, of course, Professor J.D. Agarwal already covered most of them. He did an excellent job. So now what I am going to do is more or less not exactly repeat the same thing, but using some of my own experience to reinforce some of the idea, okay? So the very first one is about what is research, the definition. Again, it was a coverage by Professor J.D. already. So what, in my opinion, is very simple. For me, the objective of research is to discover new knowledge and new applications, okay? Now, of course, it's very simple, very straightforward. But then, of course, at university, especially for junior professor and working for what we call ASSP accredited university, we actually look at research differently, because we could have what we call theoretical research, pure research, or we could look at applied research, more practical research. So I guess all of us kind of go through that, what I call life cycle. When we are assistant professor, most likely we, especially our generation, do what we call empirical study, okay? So we use all this methodology about, again, whatever test we learn, right? So, but then, because I start from assistant professor in Southern Illinois and then promote to associate professor and then chair and then full professor. And then when I moved to Texas, I become the distinguished chair and then the dean. And then I came to MACAU, become the dean and the BNU chair professor. But then each stage in terms of research, when we are assistant professor, we more or less just want to get it published so that we could be promoted and we could get the tenure, right? So for me, I would say the younger generation, you should learn from my mistake, because I got my PhD from Ohio State. You know what? My professor, they only published in a journal. So when I went to Southern Illinois, I was so naive. I only submit to JF, to RESTAT, all those A journal. And my first 4 years, I have no publication, okay? And my department head actually told me, Jacky, you have 1 more year to go. Are you serious? Because after that, you know, something with da. And then year 4, you know what? I got 5A. I got JF, I got GIFs, I got reviews, economic statistics, I got journal of banking, finance, all this stuff. But the state of Illinois has budget problem, like what we're facing nowadays. I have no increase in salary. So as an assistant professor, I'm the lowest paid professor in finance. Of course, later on, they say it's no fair to me, so they consider early promotion. So I actually 5 years, I already promoted to associate professor, so my salary go up. So my first suggestion to the junior faculty is try to diversify, try to have a portfolio. Yes, you need quality. You need to have several good quality paper available to submit to the top journal. But at the same time, you should care about quantity. You need to have certain number of articles, may not be A, but B or B plus, or even C, because you need both in order to be promoted to associate professor and get tenure. By that time, you have more time, because otherwise, if you cannot get the tenure, then you are in big trouble, especially if you got a family, especially if you are a foreign student, you may not have citizenship yet. So there's all kind of pressure and also all this legal status issue. So try to diversify. And again, Professor J.D. Agarwal already talked about try to get good professor, good co-author, because they have the experience they could share with you. So a portfolio approach in finance is the way to go. Now, be more specific. I would say how to come up with topic. You need to go to conferences to learn what people are doing. And then at the same time, you also have to try to submit article to those conference for presentation. After you get the feedback from the discussion, you come back and we write your paper and then you submit to journal. So just like production, you will have some work in progress, you have some submission, you have some line in the water so that you could catch fish. If you got no line in the water, you're not going to get any fish, okay? So you're part of the diversification that I was. And then don't be disappointed when you got first rejection, second rejection, and third rejection. It's very normal, okay? Try to improve based on the referee's report, and hopefully after you improve several rounds, then it would go somewhere, okay? And that would be my suggestion, keep trying. Now, talking about ASSB, because we got ASSB not too long ago, and now we may have reaccreditation pretty soon. In addition to applied research, theoretical research, right now we also accept what we call case analysis or some kind of teaching-oriented research, okay? So they're not really discovery of new knowledge, but applied knowledge or some kind of practices to the real world. And again, I mentioned that when I was a Chicago Fed consultant, St. Louis Fed, and then now the MACAU Monetary Authority, more or less like the central bank, and then Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the research that they want me to do is not theoretical research anymore. Actually, they want me to do what we call policy implication. Okay, I finished one for this Basel 1, 2, 3 about the value at risk for bank capital. And actually, I compare bank in China, in Hong Kong, in Europe, because in the past, we learned financial theory. We use mean variance based on market risk portfolio theory. But you know what? Later on, they go to skewness and higher moments. But nowadays, they go to value at risk, which is a downside risk, which is because of the crisis. Okay, my dissertation happened to be closely related to what they call black swan effect. All those financial crises actually is my area. But at that time, when Mandelbrot and Eugene Farmer start those research, not too many people interested. But later on, of course, I use it for, again, bank capital. I use it for this kind of risk management hedging. So that's why I was able to publish in those top journals, because it's relatively new at that time. Nowadays, they develop a lot, okay? So my suggestion is when we move from junior position to senior position, your research direction may also, our focus got changed across time. But again, that is normal. Now, of course, we won't have time to talk about whether you should choose a research university, a comprehensive university, because sometimes it's not up to you. If you got a degree from Columbia University, from Harvard, from MIT, most likely you should look for research university for your first job, and then you go from there. But if you graduate from Big Ten, most likely you will go to some major regional university. But it's okay. Each way, I would say, is optimal based on the endowment we have. I mentioned about going to conference. In addition to learning people's research paper, if possible, go to what I call editor section, just like what we're doing now. You should listen to the editor. They will share their opinion, their acceptance, and their best practices with you. So as assistant professor, I learned quite a lot that way, because you think that your paper is the best, but from the referee, from the editor point of view, oh my God, you are totally off. Although you are doing something good, but you know, you need to fix this and fix that. So meeting with the editor is one very good opportunity to be productive and get paper accepted. Then Anand also said, what key factor one must keep in mind when writing a research paper? I would keep asking myself, well, what is new? If people have done this already, why you have to repeat this again? So ask yourself why you have to do this, and then what the reviewer, what the editor would look for. Would they agree with you about what you're saying or what you want to test, or is your methodology good enough? Again, Professor JD talked about this term, scientific research. I'm teaching actually a PhD class online because of the virus. So today I might go home, it'll be almost midnight. And last night I went home about 10 p.m. Tomorrow I have an early meeting. So after this, I have to excuse myself. But anyway, the key is that the scientific approaches that must based on good theory, must based on some either methodology based on, I would say, either statistics or mathematics, okay? And so a scientific research should have that two components, theoretically sound, methodology sound. So don't use this biased or subjective opinion to do some of those research. So those are what I would keep in mind. And then another question Anna asks is will a peer review before submission a good idea? I think so. Indeed, last week, I have two professors from Hong Kong. They are insurance professors. And one of them actually used to be a managing director of an insurance company in Hong Kong. Obviously, his methodology is not as strong. So I studied risk management. I studied fat tail distribution. So their paper need all this kind of technical comment. So I tell them that if I were you, I will make this change, I will make that changes. So for them, they could again get all this opinion. So they fix the problem and then they send to journal. Otherwise, when you submit the journal, the reviewer say, hey, no good. So I would say, if possible, look for some peer review before submission. Now, but those good reviewer, they are usually very busy. They will be serious and they will say something that you may not like it, just like what I did. I told them that, hey, your methodology here, you more or less talk about a causality test, but what you're doing a regression. It's not causality test at all. So go to get Granger, all these tests, okay? So again, look for good peer review. Don't ask someone, your buddy, and say, oh, this is good, and it's empty stuff. It makes you feel good, but the chances your paper may not benefit that much, okay? So look for good peer reviewer. And finally, the other question is about how to take care of this plagiarism check. Definitely, okay, definitely. Now we have software because when we look at our students' PhD dissertation, we actually send it to library. They have a software to run through it, and if there's certain kind of red flags, we have a limit. I forgot how many. If this exceeds this kind of limit, we reject it and ask the student to redo it. So definitely we have to be professional. Make sure if we refer to others' work, we should code them. We should follow the professional approach in terms of handling all this research work. Now I know I should not overspend my time. I hope. Am I within the time line?
No, very much in the time.
Okay. So those are the major points I want to make. And now the second question, actually, I could add a little bit more if I got time. The second question is what one must keep in mind to submit their research work to top index journal having higher impact factor. Okay, so this is about what topic that you should choose. Now, again, this is very important. I reviewed enough paper and I told my PhD student myself, is that you must pick some topic that's important. What are important topic? The important topic must be timely and new. So actually, I'm suggesting to some of them to do all this coronavirus paper, because again, it's a risk management issue to have social impact. Actually, different countries, somehow the death rate is different, the recovery rate is different, okay? And some very good country, they have very good medical and technology, yet they have a lot of people die. So what's wrong? How can we help the society fix some of these problems? Okay, so these are very timely and important topic. Of course, in formal work is what is a contribution to the literature, right? So we always look at this contribution to the literature, whether that paper should be accepted or rejected. And then, of course, must be original research. Again, I mentioned about sound methodology, right? You may have very good idea, good topic, but if the methodology is wrong, garbage in, garbage out, get nowhere. Okay.
True.
Finally, I guess as a foreign student myself, and although I live in US for 30 some years now, my English may be better, but my Chinese is getting worse. My Putonghua is no good, so I have to use English in my class. As a foreign student, we all had trouble in terms of, I guess, writing, in terms of organization, in terms of grammar, in terms of communication. So for foreign students, I suggest that they get some professional editorial help before they submit the journal to, submit the paper to journals. So would be my suggestion for foreign students. Of course, for Indian students, no problem. You guys English much better than us. I have some colleagues from India. My co-author, Parentie, he helped me with some of the English. So I better stop there, otherwise I will take too much time.
Yes, before you stop, I would have a question for you, because you did share your experience at various universities, but I see that you have been at Texas A&M, where there is a lot of oil money which comes in. So a lot of research by universities is done on oil. And now you're in another place where a lot of casino money is
a lot of money
in MACAU.
I almost want to say it.
So you have these special zones where you work in lately, last and now as well. And then in any case, you worked in entrepreneurship extensively. And the fact that entrepreneurship is now the tune for various countries, especially in India, where they talk about startup and entrepreneurship more than what they did in the past. Although we have had small scale industries and that were also entrepreneurship, but they never called entrepreneurs. Now, from that perspective, you can share some perspective from the way you saw in Texas and US, the difference in what you see in MACAU, and how have you seen that thing bridge up?
Okay. Now, first of all, about Texas, two major universities, UTech and A&M system, one Democrat, one Republican, okay? Why they have money? Those universities usually have money because they have a share for those oil from the state. UT Austin have a very large percentage of those oil income from the state. And we A&M did not have that much, but when the oil price is good, they have quite a lot of income from there. Not much from tuition, but from the oil money. However, one year, I actually advised to my president, because in Texas, we actually have what we call biannual budget. You don't have budget every year, every 2 years. So I said, President, he's actually a Princeton PhD. I said, President, this year is a good year, but if I were you, I would save some reserve for the storm coming, because at that time, I predict the next year the oil price will drop down. Then they won't have that much money. Unfortunately, I was right. And then they have enough reserve to cover the next year's budget deficit. Okay. So now, come back to MACAU now. Of course, again, we are larger than Las Vegas. We got a lot of casino revenue. But I guess I was in US. I actually was on sabbatical leave, and I was lucky. I supposed to stay until May, but I have to come back to teach this PhD class. So I came back early January. Then everything shut down. If I did not come back, I was stuck in US now. I won't be able to come back, okay? But anyway, so here MACAU shut down. You have tons of money every month, every year. Now, boom, I think they dropped down 96% in terms of tax, in terms of casino revenue. So of course, the new chief executive keep asking me, what can we do? Of course, the answer is very simple, diversify. Okay, but it's easy to say, but difficult to do, because MACAU have no natural resources, is so small. So the only way now they could do is, again, I would say, because China is so big, so they could work with China to let more tourists coming out. In fact, they just announced maybe within 1 or 2 weeks, actually the customs are gonna open up. So more tourists will come and we could go to other cities to travel also. So I guess finance concept, diversify may be the way to go. And I also tell them maybe this is Asian culture. When I was a kid, my parent would tell me, you know, gambling is one of the 4 sins, right? Gambling, drug, prostitution, and then drink alcohol. So 4 sins. So how come now we accept one of these sins? So even not for economic reason, we need to diversify. For moral reason, we have to diversify. Okay.
Yes.
So that would
Perfect.
be my...
Thank you, Jacky. I did have some more, but then I want to listen to others, and then we will bring you in back before you leave for the evening. I know you have a hectic schedule tomorrow, so we will try to finish it up and try and see if we can have some questions before you leave. But please do stay back with us.
I will stay for another 10 minutes. I will stay for 10 more minutes, okay?
Yes. We'll now move to Georges. Georges has joined us from Israel in Tel Aviv, and you can see this beautiful painting behind him that can tell you the kind of colorful life he has in terms of research and working out. Just 2 days before, he was in Syria, and he's always traveling here and there, whether it is Paris, France, or where he belongs to, and then wherever he is. Georges has been a dear friend. He's been a family member. Both Maggie, his wife, and Georges are like family for us. They've always been there with almost all family functions we've ever had in the last 20 years. So it's such a pleasure to have you here with us, Georges. Although Georges was a little apprehensive of the internet problem which he's facing lately in Tel Aviv, but I'm happy that we are able to connect with him. Georges, is on the board of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Israel as of now. He is on our editorial board of Finance India for decades now, and he keeps advising us from now on. He has been a former professor of the money and banking at La Sorbonne University in Paris, and head of economic division, dean of research at the Institute of ISC Paris, which is the Institute of Supreme Commerce, which is a commerce and management school in Paris, a very leading business school. We had a collaboration with the ISC Paris, which was initiated when he was there with us, and we welcomed a couple of groups of executive students and others, and even research scholars from ISC Paris while he was heading the affairs at the ISC Paris and being a board member there. He is, as I said, the associate governor of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I have requested him for 2 components. Fine, research he does, he has been doing for centuries now, I can say. But I have also requested him to share his insight on Israel, to talk about a little bit of Israel and the way things and life is in Israel, and to share with us his insight there as well. So I would request now Georges to go ahead. And let me tell you, my dear friends, we are going to have Georges for a special session next week, only talking on Israel. So that's going to be there next week, and I'm going to impound on his time. I can impound on all these people who are here with me. And I know they'll never say no, but I've already spoken with Georges, and we're going to schedule it next week, but for now on research in Israel. Go ahead, Georges.
Okay, Aman, thank you very much. I take this opportunity to extend my salutation to your father and my dear friends, Yamini, your sister, and Saurabh, your brother that I was very glad to meet in India many times, 3 times. Yes. About the topics of this conference, I will tell you something original, the difference that I see here and what I saw when I was living in France. You know, I moved to Israel only 5 years ago. Why move to Israel? Why moving, and why move to Israel? Why moving? Because it was time I was retired from La Sorbonne, and I used to change, to see something different, to be in a new country. You know, Israel is very, you can say very, very old country. If you go to 2,000 years ago, it was a huge country, no Israel. But it's a very, very young country, because this country has been created by a United Nations organization only 72 years ago. Very, very young. It's a very small country, teeny country, less than 10 million people living here. And it's a country where you can find maybe 100 or 120 nationalities, different nationalities. If you go in the street, you can hear any language. Any language. You can speak Hindi, you can speak Chinese, you can speak Vietnamese, English, of course, Espanol, Portuguese, Dutch, German, every language in the world. If you go to some place and you want to eat something different, you can find any food from any place of the world, any place. You go to you see the shuk is the market. You can find food from South Africa, from South America, from Asia, of course, from Europe, from any country in the world. They can find it cheap, and you can find very good quality in all these countries. So this is a big difference. About the research, I wish to say that the first thing about research is to choose very well the topic, the subject of your research. I don't speak about fundamental research. You know, everyone here knows this better than I do. I used to do some years ago fundamental research. I remember a long time ago my dissertation was about multiple exchange rates, not on one, not flexible, but multiple. You have a country with 2, 3 exchange rates. This began in Germany after the war, before the Second World War, and was extended. And when I finished my dissertation, 1 year later, the United States introduced exactly the system: tax on importation, subvention on exportation. That means for $1, you can have 4.5% more, or you have to pay 4.5% less. And like this, you can organize the international trade, favorize some countries, or install penalties on some goods, some countries. This didn't last long time. Why? Because the international monetary system changed to flexible exchange rates, the rates that we know today. And you can no more use taxes, subvention, it's completely finished. But it was a very interesting subject at that time. That is fundamental subject. Second thing is applied research. Here for applied research, we are very, very lucky. Very lucky because, you know, maybe somebody of us know what Israel is called the startup nation. It's a country where there is a bigger number of startup companies in the world, and the higher budget for research per capita for every habitant. One with the bigger. The second country at Wall Street in the market for introducing new companies, just after United States. For such a teeny country, so it's only 10 million inhabitants. It's very fantastic. Maybe some of you heard about the results of research in Israel. I give you only 1 or 2 examples. Maybe you know Waze a GPS system, but here everybody use, not only here, every country in the border, we are close to war with Israel, use this system. And you can never lost, you can find the best way, you can go quicker from a place to another place, and it's cheap. And this company has been sold to American for $1 billion. $1 billion. And one of the conditions that the company stay in Israel. And the research and development is always here. But it's a young company, 4 years old, $1 billion. You have other example. I give you only one more, but I can give you a full list. It's a company called Mobileye. I'm sure you know because it's not so used in the world, but Mobileye is used by Google Car to drive cars without driver. And one of Google cars has went 4,000 kilometers in the States without any accident. Nobody on board, only computer, only machinery. But this is a second example. This has been sold to, I think, twice the price of Waze, $2 billion, something like this. I'm not sure exactly, but it's something like this. So to give you some examples of the dynamic, of the success of this applied research. And the particularity is applied research is made by young people in the university, and they receive funds from university. Every university here is involved in research, applied research or fundamental research, and they have to help the people to do something. For example, something totally new. It's not, you didn't succeed, but was very, very close to succeed. A group of young students about 20 years old, no more, launched a satellite to the moon 6-7 months ago. He go to the moon and he missed the moon by about 2 kilometers. Group of students, 20, 22, 23 years old, with no money, with capacity, only thinking, ingenuity, and they succeed because they receive some money from the university to make this. And they're trying again because they're sure to receive, to have a good result next time. So that's the environment, that's the place where we live. And you can, if you open a newspaper every day, yes, we have newspaper in English, you have newspaper in of course, in Hebrew, in French, in Japanese, in any language, every day you think something new. Every day you think something new and you can be involved in this. That's why this is a big enrichment, wealth for the country and for the citizens of this country. And this is the most interesting thing you can find here. I invite you all to come. And a man came in once, a long time ago. He promised me to come back, and I'm expecting him. and you can find good weather, good, nice people, and everybody understand your language. Any language in the street, you can speak any language you want. You'll never be lost, never. So you will come, we are all welcome. So that's I want to tell you. It's something very special you can find here, but I think you cannot find in another country. And it's one of maybe not the research, but it's the most important reason I choose to come in this country. As Raman told you yesterday, I was in Syria and the border of Lebanon. You know, it's only 200 kilometers from Tel Aviv. The whole country is from north to south, 500 kilometers, the whole country. And from east to west, maybe 90, less than 100 kilometers, very, very small. So you can drive half a day and you arrive to a border. You can, yesterday, I was able to make skiing in Mohermon at the border of Lebanon and Syria. It was still some, not last 2 months ago, but there was some snow and you can ski. And if I want, tomorrow I drive my car to south, to Elat, and I find water, hot water in the sea, maybe 30 degrees Celsius now, and we cross the desert, we cross the mountain. You have any climate, anything you can find in many, many other countries. So I never be bored here. I am very happy to stay here, and I hope some of you will be. I can welcome some of you anytime in Tel Aviv.
Thank you, Georges, for that insight into research and your journey of research and into Israel. I am very happy because I've been in Israel thrice, in fact. In Tel Aviv and Ben Gurion as well. I was firstly invited to address an IMF conference as a keynote speaker with Martin Wolf, who was the chief economist of Financial Times. He was the luncheon speaker. First day I was the luncheon keynote speaker. The second day, and I was there in Ben Gurion, and it was amazing to see Ben Gurion as well as in Tel Aviv. And then next time I was in Tel Aviv as well, when I brought in about 80 companies, CEOs of 80 companies, taking from SHM, one of the chambers, from India to Israel to do business. And I signed, as being the head of the delegation, I signed large number of MOUs with Israel chambers during that time. So I've had beautiful memories, and then I visited Shaw to address a university as well. We would be very happy to engage and maybe bring another delegation of academicians, maybe to your university sometime soon, as part of collaborations which could be done, and even as part of research. I look forward. Please do stay. And as I said, I will be tapping onto you next week for a full 1 hour session with you on Israel.
Okay, I'm very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, George. It's good to
Thank
be
you
on with
very
us.
much.
I'm now going to move to Mukul, who's been patiently waiting, and I see Mukul around. Just to briefly, give an introduction to Mukul. Mukul, he's an Indian citizen. He's not that it is taken up Singaporean citizenship. He's still an Indian citizen. He is with the Weerakoon school. He's a senior researcher there. He was been a professor, full professor. He's with the Weerakoon School of Public Policy. He has done his PhD from Washington State University, and as you can see, he's been at various positions at NUS and other places around, but he is sticking on to NUS from almost 1975 onwards. His journey in Singapore has been from the very beginning, but he's kept his heart close with India, because in the last 25 years, I have seen him travel more to India than I would have ever traveled in India myself. So, that's the kind of heart he has had for India. Not only that, but various government projects have kept him alive in India, taking on pension funds, on various aspects of Indian economy. He has been the person who actually drafted the pension reform, the new pension system we live in, linked into the market, although I had disagreement on that issue with him long back when he invited me to address at some forums. But then he has been there. He's been also been nominated to be the chairman of the 5th State Finance Commission of Haryana from 2016 for a period of 1 year. Then he was chairman of the Committee of Housing Finance Association of NPS subsidiaries for PFRDA, which is the Pension Fund Regulatory Authority, in November 2016. He has been a distinguished fellow with the Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation. He's been with us at the Institute actively as an advisor for a long time. He's been a director of the Public Policy Global Village Foundation, and numbers of them. You can go through it. It can be there. He's been given an honorary professorship of Kazakhstan Institute of Management, Economic and Strategy in 2009-11. And then he has, as I said, a large number of public services which he has done. As I said before beginning, like Professor Agarwal, every one of them is a gem. A person who has contributed to the field of research their whole life. As we say, a guru, a sannyasi who has contributed, each one of them in their own spheres have done that wonders. Now I move to Mukul, who has been in this public policy space and has shaped the pension framework and various other structures in India. He may be living in Singapore. He may be earning maybe in Singaporean dollars, but his heart lives in India. And I have seen that, felt that from the very beginning. I now move to Mukul. I will, let me just see if I've unmuted him. Mukul, yes, you are unmuted. I now go to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm humbled by the invitation to be participating with the distinguished scholars to talk about research issues. Professor Agarwal has given a very comprehensive view of some of the 4 questions that we were supposed to discuss. I'm going to take a slightly different perspective on this. When individuals do research, they do research in the larger context of the institutional and organization of the higher education system and of the research institutions. They are constrained, and we need to keep those constraints in mind, especially when we are discussing research for Indian scholars. India, in my view, and I may be wrong, made an error, policy error, in the 1950s and 60s when the teaching and research were separated. As any good academic knows, and a researcher knows, teaching and research are inseparable. So what we are finding ourselves in India, I'm going to be more specific to India, at this particular juncture is how to address that fundamental policy error that we made and try to improve India's research profile in the world and to encourage research culture among the Indian academics and research institutions. Now, in any system, there are incentive and disincentive structures for research. In some countries, if you publish in a well-recognized international high-ranked journal, you get a bonus. You get a particular amount as an incentive when the overall salaries are relatively low. So that distinguishes, because in many countries, and the ones that were cited mainly about the United States, is that there is a tenure system which requires you to pass some hurdles in the area of research. How many publications you have per year, how many are in what ranked journals, and so on. And only when you do that, you ultimately get tenure. Otherwise, you don't. Actually, the tenured faculty in the United States is a very small proportion of the total teaching strength in the United States. In India, it's not that way. Majority get sort of permanent type positions without too much effort. And that creates an incentive structure where you really have to struggle to get the research output from them. This even includes IIMs and others. So we are beginning to now set up some incentive structures that you have to publish. So the systemic environment and incentive disincentive structure should be very much kept in mind. There is going to be no one research strategy, as the previous speakers have suggested. Let's start with an individual who is trying to do PhD dissertation. That is the first initiation, or MPhil dissertation. That is the first initiation. Now, for that, what is really necessary is that the thesis should show, or a candidate should show, that they are capable of reviewing the relevant literature competently, set up the research questions, and investigate, as Professor Agarwal has already said, in a very systematic, scientific manner, which is acceptable internationally. So that demonstration is very important. And for most people, their PhD thesis or MPhil, that is the first step towards publishing. So they should be writing in such a way that some publications occur because they would have worked for a long time on their thesis. And in this, one of the key strategic decisions to make is what topic to research on and who the supervisor is going to be. Now, a lot of people try to get big name supervisors, but from my experience in the academia, what I have seen is that the students or the candidates who research and pick those supervisors who have a good record of getting the students through the degree are among the best supervisors and not necessarily the big names. I'm not talking about top Ivy League university. I'm talking about average in Indian university or even average American university. That you need to pick a supervisor who can get you through and try to work for a while to try to learn the tricks of the trade, use supervisors' contacts in order to get first set of publications. First set of publication, like a first job, is always very difficult. But once you get there, your name is there. Now it becomes easier, but you got to break the umbilical cord of the supervisor in 2 to 3 years. If you just keep on publishing with your supervisor, your value in the future will tend to go down. And there are some people that I have seen who learn a technique, say a linear programming or some other type of technique, and they will apply it to anything. That technique which they have learned, they get some quantity, but they don't get quality and don't get ahead in the research. So research at the initial stages is in the form that I've suggested. As you move up, you got to start publishing on your own. And that requires what was already said, going to conferences, creating network, understanding the editors, what they want. In every area, there are certain puzzles which are in favor. And unfortunately, in some cases, certain points of view or perspective, which are more accepted by the journals than the other point of view. At one stage, Keynesian said, very hard time getting accepted. Then it became mainstream. Others had more difficulty. So you got to be strategic and understanding about it if you are not an exceptionally bright researcher who has got many novel ideas. Most researchers are average, and they need to show that competence, but that awareness about where to go and publish. Usually, the institutions nowadays set up their comparators. Like Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy had set up the Crawford School of Public Policy in ANU as our main comparator. So we will keep on watching them, who is publishing there, what type, what their output is, and so on. And we would be given encouragement, incentives to try to move towards that. And the younger faculty, when they come in, they are given a mentor. So that mentor is to guide, not to necessarily co-author, but to guide. Now, today's knowledge explosion is so much that once you have satisfied your institutional requirement for research and gotten your tenure promotion, then you need to create a small network of people of peers with whom you are constantly communicating and occasionally having co-authorship, joint research, and so on, so you can complement each other. Some people are not good at econometrics or statistical techniques, which are now very essential for publications in social sciences, even in political science and sociology. Some are good at conceptualization, at writing, at understanding the strategic importance of certain issues. They collaborate, both of them win. Okay, so you got to figure out what are your individual strengths, who can complement you, get together with them, and then try to create a partnership. Now, in my case, what I keep on doing is to encourage the PhD students as they graduate with me, writing the thesis, to publish with me 2 or 3 times. And to get them that head start, so when they go to the job market, they already have some profile which will put them ahead of the others. So in the individual's research, supervisor's role is very, very strategic as well. And the institutions need to facilitate that. Today, what does today's research require? The basic understanding of numbers, statistics, and all that, and the research methods. But there is also an additional constraints that have come in recent years, and that is the research ethics. A lot of time research ethics is not taught, but the institution should insist what are the ethical standards, have a standard operating procedure which is known to all the researchers, and that includes the plagiarism part. We know that unfortunately in today's academia, there is a lot of plagiarism, there is a lot of fake research, that is the samples, the regression results, others, they are being sometimes manipulated to get the right consistency with the hypothesis or the research questions. And these are all the things we can do. Ultimately, the individual's integrity and research ethics, which is insisted upon, is going to be our main support system to guard against that. Now, there is also in many areas, sorry, I think my camera just moved. Sorry about that. In many applied areas, public policy, where I am, applied economics, where I work, there is also at a stage where you have fulfilled your institution requirements and so on, there is a public duty to communicate your research to the wider audiences, including policymakers and others, to improve the debates on public policy, whether it is in economics, agriculture, labor market, on ethnic relations, and so on, infrastructure. Now, we know that the quality of public debate is particularly low. And in today's world, where there are a lot of opportunities to sound off and very instantly, without reflection, and there is unfortunately a lot of politicization of the expertise that has occurred, it is very important that the researchers and the academics, as well as institutions, as you are doing, contribute to the improved quality of the public policy debates. In that, one can disagree, like in others. And as Aman pointed out, there have been times when we are disagreeing on certain technical issues or judgments and so on. But that is a mark of civility and maturity that you can continue to be collaborating, cooperating, working together in spite of this kind, and help improve the quality of public public debate. It has already been pointed out that there is a standard plagiarism software and others that are used. We use it here in a very routine way as well. One of the questions was about the journal question has been answered. You have to strategize. At what stage are you? Do you need quantity? Then even a C publication is okay if it is quick. And if you are waiting for A, as I've known some colleagues that come from Ivy League and say Ivy League people don't publish below a certain standard, and they don't get much publication for quite a while, and their tenure suffers, their career suffers. So strategy. Now this is research is your individual competence, but your understanding of the strategy is going to be as necessary as well. Problem with showing your research to peer groups too much is that today your ideas or things could be copied very quickly in today's world. And so this is why I've been insisting that each researcher creates a trusted group of 2, 3, 4 people in their area. Okay, some of them are working on in their area, but they are not going to be collaborating with you in publication, but in ideas. And once you get those ideas, they are constantly sending you new research, you are sending them, you are in touch, and that excitement of ideas will give you the idea, the research agenda that you need to follow. So public policy debate can be done by op-ed pieces, by podcast, by webinars of this type, and by policy advice. That's why I have always tried to be involved with multilateral institutions, with governments of different countries, states in India, and the kind of knowledge that I got by using my academic side to discuss with them and to communicate with them. And that communication clarifies your own thinking. When I worked for Haryana State Finance Commission, Chief Minister, Finance Minister will ask me some questions. So don't give me jargon. Just tell me what does it mean and what we can do in practical terms. That gets me to thinking. And that improves my teaching. It improves my research and brings clarity. So research is ultimately, research and teaching, being an academic, are a passion. So if you are looking at it as just a way of making a living, then you will satisfy research requirements, but you won't contribute. Or if I am allowed last word sentence in Hindi, then I will translate. आपने समाज के कल्याण के लिए क्या किया? उसके प्रॉब्लम्स को एड्रेस करने के लिए क्या किया? That for many researchers should be a very important touchstone. So what have you done to improve the society, to help it address its challenges? And it could be something as simple as having a rubber research institute that does research on rubber products to help the MSMEs to come up with new products to solve their problems and to provide employment and livelihoods to larger number of people. So that the citizen-centric and the Samaj or society-centric outlook is as important, and research should not be looked at in a very selfish, individualistic manner. Thank you, Aman. Thank you, everybody.
Mukul, for that insight, and that you highly pointed out, because you have been involved with public policy making and with various policies drafted by the central government and the state governments at various stages of your life. So I'm happy that you brought that phase in, because I personally believe that there is, research of all kinds, whether it is theoretical, empirical, but ultimately it has to have impact on our lives. If it doesn't, then we are losing it somewhere. It is important from academic growth perspective, it's fine, but then the other outlay must be there. Thank you. Please do stay with us. We will come to question and answer sessions after the thing. In case you need to go in, you're welcome, but please do stay with us. We have Joshua to come in now. I'm just still waiting for him to introduce him so that whenever he comes, as I told you, Josh has just gone under a major surgery, and he has been given large amount of medications, which makes him sleep a little longer. So Joshua is currently at the NYU Stern, and so I will introduce him, and then we need to move to Banu, if Banu is there, and then we move forward, because I'm trying to reach him. He's not picking up phone, so I'll see just when he comes. But he's a professor of accounting in New York University, Stern School of Business, co-editor of the Journal of Law, Finance, and Accounting. Professor Ronan teaches courses in managerial accounting, financial accounting, advanced topics in financial accounting and financial statements. He's been at NYU for 45 years with primary research area including capital market, disclosure, earning, impact accounting rules, and financial reporting, legal liability firms, and so on and so forth. You can see a large number of them. He has been on various journals. He has been editing the New York Times. He's been writing for the Economic Accounting Review, the Journal of Accounting Research, Journal of Accounting, Auditing, and Finance. We had Bala last time, who was the founder editor of the Journal of Accounting, Auditing, and Finance, one of the top 3 journals in the area of accounting auditing. Abacus Management Journal, Journal of Public Economics, Journal of Behavioral Economics, and then he has taught at various universities, including the Hebrew University, London School of Economics, University of Chicago, and various other places. He has done his Bachelor's of Economics from Hebrew University in Israel. So we have another colleague of ours who is from Israel, currently heading as the governor, associate governor there, and he has also did his Bachelor's in Economics from Hebrew, and then his doctorate in philosophy from Stanford University, and his CPA in Israel as well. And you can see his research interests in the area of disclosure, accounting theory, capital market, and the kind of courses he has taught in the last couple of years. As I said, we are not able to connect with him. I will see to get him up, and I told you I did request him to come in a little later whenever he gets up. So we will have him later towards the session. I will try and reach him again. In the meantime, not to stop here, we will move on to Banu, and let me just introduce Banu as well. Banu, I don't know if you can see that. Banu, in any case, is a chair finance professor and the acting chair of the Department of Faculty of Business at the DEU Izmir University of Economics, which is there. She has done her graduation and schooling and university and PhD from the same university, but she has had a stint at the Boston University as well, where she was in the United States of America. She is an accountant by profession, which I came to know personally when we had a session with her on Essence of Life, which I came to know that she has actually had the influence of her father, who was an accountant, and as a result, she did get engaged with, moving on to doing accounting and be the Association of Accounting for a long time. Then we've had her also speak about the fact that she has done with various chambers she's engaged. She has, I could not find much about her on the website. As you know, it would be in Turkish, and that's where I was getting a problem getting on to her. And I wanted it to be a surprise, so I didn't want to ask her about her, because it seems stupid after 25 years of my engagement with her, 25 years, I asked someone, please tell me something about yourself, and that becomes a little difficult task to go about doing. But she has, as I said, from the Durukan University, she's done a PhD in business in '97, Boston University, her master's in business in 1995, where a lot of change in her perspective came up. You should listen to her video, which is there on our IIF News and Broadcasting channel. A full 1.5, almost 2-hour session which we had about her life, her journey in life and growth. And then she did her bachelor's from the DU University. As I said, she is a professor in Sylvania and Hope, where she calls her second home. I hope India would be her third home, where we will have her here soon, and she will be then with us soon as well. That's just a brief introduction about Banu. You will get to see more of her as we go along, seeing her and seeing what she has in store for us. Banu, you're welcome. The house is yours. I will just make you just a second. I'll make you on the spotlight so that you can start with your presentation and your talk. And please go ahead now, Banu, with your presentation on the outlook of research, please.
Thank you, Aman. I would like to thank you and Indian Institute of Finance for making me a part of this webinar. And I'm honored to be a part of this group of esteemed professors whom I've admired all my life, you know, whose papers I have cited or read about, learned from them. So when I was preparing my presentation, I was thinking, okay, you know, what can I do? Like they have so much experience, much more many years than I have. So at my faculty, actually, I am an adjunct professor of Izmir University of Economics. Actually, my home university is 9 Eylül University. And at this university, at our PhD program, we have a course named as Dissemination of Information, which I'm teaching. And in this course, we try to provide our students with resources and tools and to inform them about the research, the process, not the research methodology. It's not a research methodology course, but this is a course where we try to show them how the publication process goes, what they should think of when they actually do research. So we try to show them, give them some insights as you are trying to do with these webinar series. So when I thought of speaking in this webinar, I thought, okay, what can I say? Maybe a little bit to complement what all these more experienced professors will tell. What can I say to complement them? And so I picked up some of the resources and tools that we talk about in this course, and I would like to briefly introduce those resources and tools so our participants, the ones who are listening to us, can always tap into those resources also in the future. These are resources that are freely available on the internet. And then if they have any questions, they can easily maybe find some answers. So as Aristotle said, and as everyone here has mentioned already, as researchers, we first of all try to learn about our specific discipline. So here, more specifically, we are all in finance, economics, so we try to be good experts in this discipline. But nowadays, we are also talking about interdisciplinary research. We are trying to learn about other disciplines as well, how they relate to our discipline. But just learning about that is not enough, or just doing the research is not enough. We have to communicate this, and otherwise, so the second step is to communicate this, and this is done through oral or written dissemination. So we can teach, we can talk on the seminars like what we are doing here. We are sharing our understanding of what we are doing. And then we just also have to communicate it in a way that it should also have impact. So that's why otherwise, it will be fruitless what we are doing. As Professor Asher rightfully pointed out, you know, then we just do research just to fulfill all the requirements, as Barbara Hillier from Saudi Arabia rightfully pointed out. Yes, we do need publications for many things, for our teaching load, for our tenure, so we need quantity, as also Professor So mentioned, but we also need quality, otherwise our research will just die out. So we will publish, but we will perish as well. So we will not last. So what we have to do is there are certain rules of the game that we have to follow. as Professor Brennan published in this Emerald's journal, he published hundreds, actually he named them as research rules, but these are mainly some suggestions. It's not inclusive, but there are very good resources that our participants should read it. It's not a long article, it's just a list of 100 rules, but he put them into 6 categories. So one is, as we have said, we conduct research and we become a researcher. Once you become a researcher, this is a lifetime journey if you want to be permanent. If you want to be temporary, I don't think you are a real researcher. I think real researchers are permanent, just like all the prominent researchers that we are listening to here. And they do this for life. It's a lifestyle for them. So conducting research and being a researcher, you have to know yourself. You have to be excited about your topic. So you are in finance, but you know, to be excited about your topic means, okay, we are constrained sometimes with the topics that we research, but do you work in sustainable finance? Do you work in behavioral finance? Do you work in corporate finance? So if sustainability doesn't excite you, you don't have to go in that direction. If fintech excites you, you go into that direction. So that's what I mean when I say your topic should excite you. Then how do you design your research? Then once you do your research, how do you write it? Because writing it is basically the communication. How do you sell? How do you show what you found? Because to me, research is trying to find answers to questions, and these answers should make impact. And then you have to take this research, these findings, to the conferences. You should share it with network of friends, and then okay, you go to publication. You publish your research. There's a whole process. On June 2nd, we focused more on this publication process in more detail. And then there are also, as rightfully pointed out here as well, authorship issues. So what are your strengths? Who should you co-author with? Should you write alone? Should you co-author with how many people should you write your research? So all of these are the issues that we are involved in when we do research. So I strongly suggest that, you know, there are also, as was mentioned before, now I didn't take a note, sorry, but one of the speakers before me said that, you know, learn from the editors, as we are trying to do here. There are also, in some journals, editors write about what type of research was published in their journals, what is important, why people get rejected. You know, you can find these kinds of articles in journals as well. So they're not higher education journals. You know, in a finance journal, you can find this kind of articles, and these may guide you through this process if you're especially an early career researcher. Now, to be able to do research, so if we go back to the very first step, first of all, you have to know when and why you need information. You have to know where to find this information, how to evaluate it, use it, and then communicate it in an ethical way. Now, ethics and academic integrity is very important, because what I see us academics, researchers we are actually like companies or enterprises. So we have our name, and we wouldn't want our name to be associated with anything unethical, because if you want to persist in this profession, we have to behave in an ethical way. Now, so we have loads of information nowadays. So how do you, when you find all this information, how do you manage all this information? Nowadays, we have quite a lot of different websites, companies providing a lot of services. Mendeley is a reference management software and researcher network, and this is provided by Elsevier. And if you just you create an account, these are all free resources, And you can always, you have your library, you can find researchers, you can find networks, you can form even your own small group, you can share data, you can work together on Mendeley. So I would urge you to check it out, and I think it may require an institutional subscription so that the institution's researchers can make use of it. But a lot of PhD students, a lot of early career researchers have started using it. It's a very good tool. You can download it to your desktop and use it for actually managing your references. It helps you with citations. It helps you with the formats. So it's very good. So as the previous speakers also said, forming a network is very important in this research activity. Another way of looking at what the new research is, what is going on, finding new researchers or learning about calls for papers, conferences, new areas, I would suggest that again, SSRN is, again, I think it's bought by Elsevier. You can create freely an account. People upload their work in process papers here and they can get comments from researchers. So this is something that you may tap into. As you see, some job announcements are there, professional meeting announcements are there, calls for papers are there. Also you get, I also subscribe to certain journals. You get some RSS feeds to your email. So you learn about what people are doing in your research area. So you may also get some ideas where you may want to go. Another networking website, I'm sure you've heard about it, ResearchGate and Academia. People share, ask questions, they upload their research there. All of these networks also help you have impact, because if you can have impact, then you don't perish. So if people know about your research, if they can access your research, if you have these, if you are part of these networks, which helps you actually disseminate your research and share it with other researchers who have the same research interests as you do. Now, of course, you become part of these networks, but then you should also be aware that doing research is one thing. Yes, we all start, we read, we do the analysis, but then writing it, how do you put it into perspective? And then you come across these writer's blocks, procrastination, these issues, like you cannot write. It seems like everything is in your head, but it just doesn't come out. So everyone has these issues. So this is like getting some psychological support. So if you're part of these networks, sometimes they give you some energy, some dynamism when you see people are working there discussing, or there are also some resources where you can learn about how to overcome these writer's blocks, procrastination issues, and also like co-authorship, different problems you may have between co-authors. You can read about those and then share your experiences with the people who also share theirs. Now, when you start a research, you have an idea, but I would strongly suggest that you can check out Professor Pfaff's pitching research website, where he actually presents a pitching template which has 4 parts. And this shows you what is important. If you can fill out this template before you write, then you're almost there, because it gives you the main points that you have to mention when you write to have an impact. So like, what is your title, the research question, the key papers that already made research or provided some foundation on your topic. What is the motivation? What is the puzzle? What is the question? Like, what are you curious about? Then like the idea, the data, the tools that you plan to use, and then what's new, and so what? What is the implication? What do you want to, where do you want to go? And your contribution, how will you contribute? And in other considerations, like, do you need funding? Where do you go to for funding? Do you need data and you don't have data? Then, like, is there a way to find this data? So basically, I would strongly recommend, there's a whole lot of resources here and they're very systematically put. So it would help a lot, I think, all these, especially the early career researchers. You know, when you start even with your dissertation or your thesis, if you can fill this out, like for your proposal, you know, you're almost done, almost, because, you know, you put everything into a frame here. So, okay, you have everything planned, you put everything into perspective, you have to write. So as you see, an IMRAT structure is expected from an article where you have an introduction, where you actually have to talk about your question, the contribution, and the implications that, the contribution and the gap that you want to fill in. Then the methodology, results, and conclusion discussion is very important, especially in terms of the implications of your findings. Now, when you submit your manuscript to the journals, finding the right journal is very important. So how do you find the right journal? Basically, a lot of publishers, like here I only put down Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley, they have journal finders where you write your abstract and you write the title, and then they suggest some journals which may fit the research area or your research, what you are doing. So that can be one thing. You can target a journal and then, you know, write for that journal if it fits with your research area. But finding the right journal is very important. Then you should follow the submission guidelines, author guidelines. You should write a good cover letter. Then when you get the reviewers' comments, you should handle them professionally. You shouldn't be offended. I'm sure here, if we ask everyone how many times they have rejected, maybe they don't, I'm sure they don't even remember the number, you know? So we are all rejected so many times. We should just take it as a constructive feedback and then resubmit by making our revisions and then explaining to the reviewers what we have changed and what we have done. So we shouldn't just give up after rejection. We should take rejection as something that improves our skills, makes our research better so that it has an impact. Now, of course, there are certain issues you have to be aware of. We are talking about open access publishing. A lot of academic journals are also providing this alternative to the authors to increase the impact of publications. You should be aware of predatory journals because, you know, these are this is a very important issue for many people when they want their tenure. If they have published in predatory journals, they're not considered towards their tenure, and that, you know, that's a major problem that we're facing now. Now, there are a lot of resources, as I have said, about writing this, how to write a lot. This is a very easy to read book. I would recommend there. Paul Sylvia has a lot of recommendations. He's actually in psychology, but he does provide some strategies for you if you know, gives you some feedback. The other ones are more structured, more systematic, more academic. Now, publishers also have a lot of online resources available. Many of them started having author services. Editage Insights, Elsevier Researcher Academy, Wiley Author Services, Emerald Publishing Research Zone. You know, when you go to these websites for Editage Insights, you know, you find a whole lot of videos, articles where people share. If you register, again, all of these are free. You get these feeds when there are webinars about certain issues, like how do you title your paper, for example, very minor things, but sometimes really takes a lot of time for you, like how do you manage your data? Then as a researcher academy, how do you unlock your research potential? So they have put things into different steps. So like, how do you do peer review? How do you navigate it? What is the publication process? So all of these resources are available out there, and the journals that you will want to publish are basically, most of them are they are published by these services. So basically this is important. Emerald Publishing is also, they provide all these different services to the authors. And when you read them, sometimes I go through them to use them in my course, and I also learn things, or then I realize, yeah, I learned this on the way with a bad experience. If I knew this before, it would have helped me. So I would suggest that you tap into these publishers' resources as well. Now, as I have said, okay, you published, but then what? What was your impact? Did your research have any impact? Will you be temporary, or will you be permanent? So today, even after he passed away, we still talk about Merton Miller. We still use what he has put forward. We still cite him. So this impact is what's important if we say publish or perish. And you can check your impact, become a part of, so you can register with Web of Science, here Clarivate Analytics, and it provides you information with how many times your articles were cited, how many times you were read, or Scopus review, again, preview. Again, as a researcher, they provide you statistics for you, so for you individually. So you get your researcher ID from Publons. This is also part of Web of Science. So go to Publon's website. They also provide you with some webinars, some resources. So nowadays also many journals ask about your ORC ID. So you should get your researcher ID and ORC ID and try to use it maybe as part of the address under your email, or in your communications. And all of these help you measure your impact, show you, okay, you can go to Google Scholar, it gives you your H index, maybe you can see it there, but these are more about the Scopus indexed or SSCI indexed journals. Now, as I have said, you do the research, you publish, and then you have impact. But if you plagiarize, if you don't have academic ethics, academic integrity, then, once this comes out, and be sure that it comes out, because today we have these are the two, Authenticate and Turnitin are the two programs that are mainly used by universities. There are many other programs as well throughout the world to check for plagiarism, also by journals. So you should be aware of plagiarism, different ways of unethical publishing, because when this comes out, everything you have done goes to trash. So if you don't have impact, you contribute to research waste. If you don't behave ethically, you actually waste yourself. Now, concluding comments, I hope I haven't taken too much time. I would suggest that make sure that whichever area you research, it excites you. If it doesn't excite you, if you don't like your research, then you will not persist with it. Know yourself, know your strengths, so that you can choose your co-authors accordingly. As rightfully put by Professor So, I think, like, if I'm good with conceptualizing, then I will need a co-author who is good in econometrics, maybe. So, like, you should find co-authors who complement you. But to be able to do that, you have to know yourself and your strengths, and work on your weaknesses. Track the new developments in your area. As I have said, become part of these networks. Also, you can subscribe to the feeds of different journals. So they send you the articles when they are published, like every month, whenever a journal has new edition coming out, I get this email where I have the list of the articles that are published in that journal that month. So I learn about them. If I'm interested, I click on it and I read the article at that moment when it's published. Network and collaborate. We learn a lot from each other. So, okay, you will have maybe a small group of researchers with whom you really share everything, but collaboration and networking also helps. And so today I'm here because I met Aman at a conference in 2000, so in Portugal. So that's, you know, our profession is universal. So we have, I'm not just a researcher in Turkey, but I'm a researcher everywhere. So if you have connections, what we all do is more or less the same. So that's something very important, and it makes us unique. I think we are the citizens of the globe in a way. So I think that's very important, that you don't just sit in your own room and just try to do something yourself. It will not be fruitful for sure. Learn the process of writing and publishing. Track your impact. Nowadays, also people share their research through social media like LinkedIn, you know, on Facebook. So make sure that your research creates impact and be ethical. So, okay, it's for sure that we may be constrained with what we are researching, but as I have said, being a researcher is a lifestyle. You know, even after we die, we research in peace, but we still research. And I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. If there are any questions at the end, I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Banu, for that insight. I just missed a call from Joshua. I think he is awake. Let me just still see if he is still there. And thank you for that insight and beautiful pictures, which I always like, which bring in that creativity. In fact, you know, as researchers, I always know people get bogged down, and we read about Madame Curie and others, which were, you know, intensely involved in research, and the way Einstein and others, when we read, you know, so I always tell, and specifically in the program on life of essence and growth, I say, worries and tensions are like birds. We cannot stop them from flying near us, but we can certainly stop them from making a nest in our minds. So if as researchers, we are not allowing those negativities or those falls where we are not able to come to a particular finding, what we're trying to find, we should keep researching. As Professor Agarwal said in the last webinar, it's like the darkness. We are supposed to find light in the darkness, that black cat with the darkness. And I think that is where you should not get down and let the negativity take over your mind and nest in it and go forward. And thank you for that insight. In any case, I will try Joshua again because I missed his call 10 minutes back. I was too intense listening to you that I didn't pick up his call. But then we will move on to the next. If you can stop your, just a second. So we'll stop your presentation here. And we will on go to Banu. Banu is unable to join just now. So I'll just introduce him so I don't need to introduce him later. Banu, if you can kindly stop your presentation so that we can start with the next. Yes, thank you. Banu is, as I said, is supposed to be joining us. He's chairing a meeting of award committee. So he said that he's in another webinar beginning, so he should be joining us soon. As soon as join, we'll bring him in. And then, so we'll move to the next. Before we do, we move to Metri. But let me introduce Banu. Banu is currently working as a professor of NIPFP, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. Prior to NIPFP, he was assistant associate professor at the Institute of Economic Growth under Delhi University in Delhi. It's a part of that campus, but it is an independent body. It worked in macroeconomics with UNCEP and Bangkok and UNDP regional office in Asia Pacific region in Colombo. He's a visiting professor at various in Paris in France and McGill University in Montreal, Canada. He has consulting assignments with ILO, World Bank, ADB, and others. His research interest areas are developing economics, macroeconomics, international money and finance, macroeconomic theory. As I said, he is a man of econometrics, and he is currently heading a research wing of the Institute, the Econometric Research. It funds and provides funding for econometric research. He is examiner for Guru Nanak Dev University, which is a famous university. I happen to be on their academic board for research and other full academic board as a board member. Then with Guwahati University, Delhi School of Economics and various other bodies. He's done work for RBI working papers and others as like others. So as I said, we will move on for the time being because I'm not able to connect with Banu as well. But I think we should be able to get Joshua soon because I got a missed call. So I'll check with him in a few moments again and then get up with Joshua. Now let me, I'm trying to disconnect. Let me just move on to Metri is here. I see him. Metri is here. Just a second, Metri. I will just go on to you before you start speaking. Let me just give a brief introduction about you. Just give me a second, please.
Yeah.
So I have this beautiful photograph of his, you know, he's a charming young dashing boy. I wonder if he ever tried his role as a model. He should. If he has not done that, I think he can do that even now. There is no age limit for doing it. And I think, you know, this photograph is professional. I must take his professional photographer because I have a lot of my hairs going away like this and I need a photographer who can put me so beautifully up. Although, so, you know, Metri, I've known him, as I said, he's been on various boards with me, even on Bureau of Indian Standards. Metri is currently heading as the director of IIM Tiruchirappalli, a very dynamic zone, is building it up from scratch. So he has more responsibilities than anything else. I don't know if he gets time to do his research anymore because I know how much administration can take time and the fact that he is in such a beautiful environment. So the environment must be taking his time as well, and relaxing and enjoying the place. But it's a very beautiful feeling to really build up something from scratch, which he has got the responsibility to do with IIM Tiruchirappalli as a distinguished academician and real teacher, notably researcher and an administrator now. An outstanding leader of management education, he's performed key leadership roles as a premier management institutes and corporate in remarkable areas. He has, under his dynamic leadership, IIM Trichy has attained a position amongst leagues of top business schools in India. He's also contributed immensely as a dean at LNP Institute and project management at Vadodara, at IMI New Delhi, at Management Development Institute of Gurgaon, and leading research programs in BITS Pilani. A renowned expert in the area of project management, quality management, and supply management, he has numerous research articles and books to his credit and advisory boards of various journals. He's also an honored member to be on our board of the Finance India as well. Currently, Metri is the chairman and resource management section of Bureau of Indian Standards, where I am also a co-chairman of another committee, Board of Studies of America AIMA, which is one of the apex bodies for Association of Management Schools in India, and member committee of various AICT bodies for evolving governance structures in AICT approved infrastructure, where I think I need to pin him up because AICT is troubling large number of schools, and I think he can be the right voice for me to take the voice to the right corners in the AICTE. But as I said, he is a notable person, a distinguished scholar. He is with Natural History in Coimbatore, Ministry of Environment. You can see he's been with so many institutions at different spheres. Metri is the first elected as Vice President of Asia Pacific Division of Decision Science Institute in Houston, Texas. He's a leader of 2 Indian delegations to Bali, Indonesia, and then to Netherlands as well for the ISO TC 251 as part of the BIS framework, the Bureau of Indian Standards, which is like the ISO internationally is the BIS in India. He is a member of the Indian Academic Review Committee of Sultan SQ University, Muscat, Oman, and member of ABMC Trade Panel, Osaka, Japan, and various other committees. So, you know, if I can go on and on, he is been heading and advising various bodies. So I will skip the later part, and I would now request Metri to go on with his address. And he's been waiting patiently. I know I've been testing his patience, but he's known me testing his patience many times. So, you know, he's always had this beautiful smile. And as I said, Metri, you must try modeling. It's important. Why not? Why not? Why can't IIM directors be models? There is no restriction to doing that, no? Why only research and administration and making lives of people happy? Make lives of other people happy also, like my children who see ads and learn from it. Metri, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Professor Aman. Aman being my good friend and a great friend, and we are known each other for a number of years. And I must say, Aman is a great academic leader, and he is a great connector. And today, I think everybody can see people from 7 countries, all distinguished academicians and the editors. They are coming together and organizing this kind of conference. It is a lot of effort, and it is only possible people like academic leader like Amanji. So Aman, thank you very much for inviting me and part of the great galaxy. And I have listened to all the distinguished panel members, and they have given very good input, and great foundation was laid by our great guru J.D. Agarwal Sahab. And then many people are thrown a light and insight about how to publish and what are the important aspects one has to keep in mind. I think many things have been about the research and all the people heavily involved in research. And I am now, I think, many years into academic administration. But in academics, research is one of the important component, and I have my own views about how to publish, how to research, publish or perish. I think important, particularly as far as research is concerned, it is essential to redefine the research for nation building. We have seen the research, we have classified the research into, different ABDCs are there, or ABS in Europe and ABDC in Australia, New Zealand, and also many American universities, they have classified A star and FT50. So many varieties and classifications we have made, and A stars and A categories journals we have created. But now the question comes is, publishing is one part. Now, as somebody has rightly said, my predecessor, that impact of research. So that is where the question comes. We publish a lot of research using the same formula, same concept and statistical tools and different data. But at the end of the day, what is the application of that research? So the impact of research is going to play a significant role. And that is why my view on publishing is basically we have to redefine the research, particularly for nation building or a sustainable globe. Example, if you take in India, we have Government of India come out with many schemes like Make in India, Innovative India, Startup India, doing business in India. So entrepreneurship and even healthcare and COVID-19 kind of situations, it is extremely important how to, practicalize, apply research in those areas so that we can move the country to the next level, applying that research in practicalizing and applied research and how to take it to the next level. So that is why research which is useful for the community, research which is going to be useful for the society, business world, our corporate world, government and policy making. So these 4 or 5 areas, if research is not going to make an impact, what kind of research we are going to do? Unless until we connect our research to the business, society, corporate, NGO, government policy making, that research impact is not going to make any difference. Somebody has, I was listening a few years back with some of the sessions, somebody said 1956, one of the conference, somebody coined the term artificial intelligence, AI. Now AI remained in the academic hall in the research fraternity for about 100 years, and after 2000, and that too precisely we can say 2004-5, suddenly artificial intelligence become an important buzzword, and it is being used in the corporate world big way. But almost 50 years it was a theory and it was not connected to practice. It took a lot of time, 5 decades to get into a practice. But theory to practice is extremely important. I can understand the original research is important, but a day should come that original research should convert into practice, and that practice should be useful for any one of those 5 important stakeholders, that society, community, corporate, policy making. So that is where impact of research, because keeping end in mind, we do many things. We all keeping outcome and result in mind, we do many things. So now in publication also, just publishing, it is not the end in mind, it is not completing, it may be end in mind for individual, but look at the business school, look at the university, look at the government, look at the state, look at the province, where the outcome comes out of that. We are spending a lot of money on research, and what is the outcome of that? So that is where it is extremely important how to connect theory to practice to research, and how to help the business world to make the things more cheaper, more better, and more faster. Cheaper, better, and faster is extremely important. So that is why applying the research for all these various sectors is extremely important. And that is where my focus is, we should focus, at least country like India. So a lot of problems, how to solve the problem, applying the research, using the research, various concepts, it is one of the important. For example, agriculture, smart village, smart cities, various areas, business schools can look into that and work on that, come out with the proposal and build a great the agriculture as a smart agriculture, smart village. I was associated almost when I was in BITS Pilani working, I was associated with the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, then Prime Minister Vajpayee initiated, and he was one of the great Prime Minister who thought about rural India. So all the 5 lakh villages to be connected, the smaller villages to be connected with the bigger villages, and that scheme where involved academic institutions and the builders together, the PWDs and CPWDs together. Basically, this was the project, and it was initially 60,000 crore project. Later on, it became 100,000 crore project. And today, that is one of the biggest role model in the country, best project. Not only project, academia, industry, first time such a big project done, and it is one of the success story. All the panchayat used to decide their small village is to be connected to which bigger village, and all such, and afterwards detailed project report is to be prepared. Then Tahsil level, Tahsildar and ML, district level, the collector and the MP, and the state level, state project implementation unit, and at the national level, National Rural Road Development Agency under the Ministry of Rural Development. So using the academic knowledge and latest technology, in those days we used to call as a RECs, today we call NITs and State Engineering College, using the local material, how to develop the best quality roads, Pakka road for the smaller villages, they did the work. So theory and practice, it was connected, and this was the first of its kind, and it was done well. And we need many such replications as a research, as well as for societal development, socio-economical development, such kind of research. I hope business schools should be focusing. And today, Government of India has come out with Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. Basically, nearby business schools can adopt the panchayats, and they can help them how to enhance the productivity in crops, and basically health and sanitization, and even water, because future war may happen, and water, scarcity of water is there. So all those areas, probably how to promote the sustainable planet and sustainable business than the as usual. So these are the areas I think even United Nations have come out with 17 sustainable development goals, and out of them, a few of them are education, many of them are there. How to get connect and help the planet for future generation, whatever the resources are there, how to use them for many generations. So those are the areas I think academic research should go. Instead of theoretical research, I have published A star, I have published 450, but what is its practical applications after many generations also, we don't find any impact. So that is why I think that now the focus is not how many papers you have published, what impact that research has made on the society, on the business, on the community, or on particular government policy. I think that should be incentivized, and that should be considered as a credential than simply publication. I'm just at the end, what I can say is, for academic, research is extremely important. Research basically bring the recognition to the faculty member, and training programs basically bring the visibility to the individual. So both are important. any business school, particularly 4 things are important: teaching, training, research, and consulting. Any holistic business school having all the 4, but nevertheless, teaching and research are the foundations. And research bring the recognition, and out of recognition, industry start recognizing. And once you start connected with the industry through the training program, the visibility will come. You will build the brand of the business school as well as your own individual brand. So this is how all the 4 things. And once you get into research and training, automatically you keep on getting the consulting. You give the result to the companies, the organizations, and then you will also become an expert consultant, providing great result to the organizations. So this is how these all the 4 components are interconnected, but research is the one which is the starting point and foundation. It gives the recognition at the entry level, as many professors said, from MACAU, and Banu says, and even our Mukulji said, it is extremely important entry level, building the strong foundation of the research, and then application of research we can enter when we move to the associate to full professor, and even when you march the heading the institution. So that is why research, once I was this kind of seminar, we were talking, one of the stalwarts very interestingly said, when the paper was submitted, and then the reviewer, editorial comment came, and the comment was like this: paper is very interesting and relevant. However, the paper is rejected because what is interesting is not relevant, and what is relevant is not interesting. So many times that logical sequence, what Banuji rightly said, 100 rules, I think we have to look into that, how to bring the logical sequence. The moment you read the first paragraph, the reader should think of how I should move to the next paragraph. That interest should be created. Logical sequence has to be there. So till the conclusion, every time will be what will come next. Like in a movie, how people are eagerly waiting for the next scene. Same way in the research, that kind of the body of text is extremely important. It has to be relevant. It also has to be interesting. And then only there will be an impact. Many readers and they refer it. Otherwise, many times all the top-notch journals, if you look at the citations are not much. Literature review, you find many citations, but the great whatever the articles in the top-notch journals, probably the readers are less. And that is why it is how to increase and how to make use of it, and how to help the society and the planet and as a entire world. That is what most important. With this, I'll close here, and I'm happy to take up the questions. And thank you once again very much, Amanji, for inviting. And now I'll start.
Thank you for that insight, Metri. In fact, you reminded me, and I wanted to actually ask this question because Sumantra, who started the ISB, had a lot of difficulty in terms of actually getting faculty up. He fortunately had friends like you and everybody here. I have who he could call upon, and that's what built up the brand equity of ISB. But then he was unable to actually inculcate that research component in the faculty itself. And then I had another friend of mine, M. Ram Mohan Roy, who actually had to go off and on a bad note because of Satyam, but otherwise he was a great scholar for NYU Stern as well. And he also, when I used to discuss with him, he used to have a lot of problems in the mid-2000s, especially recruiting the faculty and getting research component up. Teaching was fine, consulting was fine, but when it came to research, it was like hitting the nail on a rock when the rock would not budge. And that's where, I thought maybe I get your insight also, because you are now creating the IIF, building it up from scratch, and you must be facing a similar kind of a problem when it comes to inducing research component amongst your faculty members who are highly motivated, working for the government, serving in the society. But then how difficult it is. Maybe if you can share 1 or 2 thoughts of it.
I think, Amanji, it is while hiring the faculty as a holistic business school, I always look at these 2-3 components. You see, every individual are different. Some have great potential in research, some have great potential in training. So those who have great potential in training, those who are the great trainers, they are the great teachers. And those who are the great researchers, we don't know whether they are going to be great teachers or not, but that has to be tested. they have to be at least above average teachers, but the great trainers are the great teachers. So that is why you need all kinds of faculty members, those who are good at research, those who are good at training. And if you catch these two sectors, obviously it will take care of teaching, it will also take care of consulting. So that is why how to tap the potential available in the market. And that is how, when it comes to training, what I will do is senior faculty from the good institution, I look towards them, and because they already done their experience and the learning curve is already there. So I focus on such faculty, and I could able to successfully get the faculty from a better institution than I am Trichy to I am Trichy. And that is how we successfully executive education, and we made a huge mark. And even today, the NRF, our Honorable Minister has announced, and in our generation, we have again made a mark as a #1 in our second generation. So this is how, and as far as research is concerned, entry level, the people, those who are just coming from the fresh academic hall as a research scholar, and they have a lot of potential to publish because they are already keep on publishing. And that is how normally I also look at the faculty member under whom the scholar has done the research. It is not the research scholar, but who has guided that scholar. That is also important. If he is working under so-and-so professor and who is accomplished scholar, and obviously there is no need to look back because he has been given such kind of environment. A student of so-and-so professor is definitely going to make a mark. So those are some of the traits I look at hiring the faculty, and I could able to balance both the training as well as research and teaching, consulting, and that is how we are building as a holistic business school. However, as I told you, research and the teaching, they are the foundations, and other two are built based on that. And it is, of course, it is a challenge, it is a difficult, you have to convince from one end of the country to other end of the country getting the faculty, but still, and as you know that nowadays people many times with whom we are working, that also they see, and accordingly it is we can get the faculty.
Thank you, Metri. Please do stay with us for a few more minutes because we will be ending the session after the valedictory by the Honorable His Excellency. But before that, we do have two more, and I will request now, before I go to Yamini and introduce her, I will introduce her briefly, and then we will go to her address, and after that, we will. I will request Saurabh to kindly introduce his remarks at the time when he gives his vote of thanks, if he doesn't mind that, because given the time framework we are in, I would request. We have an old friend of mine who joined Manuel Armada from Portugal also. He's a very old scholar. He's he's the only full professor of Portugal, and I just see him join in, and I hope we will get his comments at the end. But I thought, let me just introduce Yamini briefly, and so that we can listen to her address, talk about what she has to say in terms of research. She is heading as the Dean Research for the Indian Institute of Finance and has been working on for a long time. Just a second. So Yamini, as you can see from here, she's been working as Professor of Finance. She has additional role as Director of Officiating for this. She has published two books, one with the John Wiley and Sons, and then with the Institute of Finance. She has published 38 research papers, published various wide, and she has been editor of various journals across. She's had addressed various central banks, national universities, chamber meetings, FICCI, PhD, SOCHM, and she is currently a board member also on a couple of companies, apart from being a regional board member of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She is on review panels and external examiner for various universities as well. I'm not able to get her, maybe the link is not working, but then I thought I will just click the and then introduce her briefly. She, as I said, is also the chairperson for the Institute of Finance. She keeps appearing very frequently on various TV channels, including Rajya Sabha TV, Lok Sabha TV, All India Radio. She is practically every second or third day on All India Radio on various programs of the economic issues. which is a national radio channel of Government of India. She has been into the Vietnam TV, Uzbek, various televisions across the globe, from where she's been into Japanese TV, CNBC, BBC as well. And she's areas of work is corporate finance, advanced financial management, international finance, new financial models, managed real economics, and e-finance. It's her work. She has, as I said, published in Journal of Accounting, Auditing and Finance, Finance India, Indian Economic Journal, International Journal of Innovative Management, and various other journals of similar nature. She's serving on various board members. She's also part of the BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, a member on there. She has also been a regular invitee to the board meeting at the Asian Development Bank, the IMF, World Bank meeting, and various countries, and has traveled worldwide. She has, to her credit, as I said, the following two books. So one is on capital structure, decisions evaluating risk and uncertainty, which is by John Wiley, which has received very good and is there in large number of libraries across the globe. And the other one, which is published by IIF Publications, on capital structure decisions under multiple objectives, the study of Indian companies. So I thought I should introduce this, and I'll now move on to Yamini, moving on to Yamini for going in for her to address on the research. What does it mean to do research? What is it in terms of publish and perish? I will be on focus. Just a second. Almost about 18 years of teaching experience, which is there. Just a second, please. Yamini, please go ahead. Yeah, just a second, Yamini. I think you're not audio. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Very good evening to the August gathering, my colleagues and my dear friends. It's a pleasure to be a part of the IIF webinar series on how to research and publish. It gives me a great pleasure to, speak on a very favorite topic of mine, which is how to research and why is it really important. So I'll share with you my insights into what I believe research really means and how does one really go about doing research and really bringing about research, which is an important component of any academician's life. Well, as we all understand that when we talk about research, why is it really important is primarily because as academicians, we need to develop ourselves. We need to develop ourselves, invest in ourselves, know about our fields, know about the fields which are surrounding us, the interrelationships that are there. Why? Because we are in a continuous interaction mode with the rest of the world, our students and other stakeholders in developing, researching, doing different activities which involve both practice as well as academic inputs. So as part of our own self-development, it's necessary that we do research. Again, we all understand that it does bring about better future prospects which are there, right from all evaluations across the universities, across colleges. We know now the Delhi University has also put an API score or the others. And even in promotions or getting selections into the best top institutions, we need to have a strong research base for ourselves, a good amount of publications for ourselves. Again, if you want to rise to an academic position, dean, chair, or other positions that are there, even in administrative positions, a certain amount of a research publications are needed in the A-rated or the top-rated journals that are there. Again, when we read about different dimensions of different fields that are there, we do understand, or we build or sharpen our creative acumen in terms of dealing with questions, dealing with practical life solutions, or training people that are there. So that creative side gets built on when we are actually trying to read and research about certain different aspects that are there. Again, it also makes us an effective leader. Why? Because as and when you research, you develop those dimensions to yourselves, which the others probably do not have. And when you actually lead by skill, then automatically the others tend to follow. also, it's important, you know, in your own academic world and outside your academic world, that you build your own name and your self-image. If you read through the best of the academicians who might have earned a Nobel Prize or who might have reached the top Ivy League institutions or the others, you would see that they have built their names by a continuous, slow and a gradual process of building their contributions through their research outputs in different journals, in different reports, or in different other places. Besides that, it also gives a self-image for the people, right? Because, you know, people recognize you. Okay, this person is from the corporate finance field. Okay, this person is from the capital structure field, or this person is from public policy, or this person has a grip on this particular aspect. And then they also, you know, relate to you more conveniently in terms of interactions, in terms of guidance, or in terms of any other technology transfer that is there. So it's very important that when we do research, or why we do research, we do find our niche together in terms of what we want to be known as, how do we want to be known as, how do we want to be recognized as, where do we see ourselves for future. Most important, not the least, is what we contribute to our nation. Why? Because every research, which may be universal, or which may be empirical, or which may be theoretical, conceptual, it has a certain amount of a contribution to the existing literature. And it is from where people actually build slowly and gradually into large practical aspects that we see. So whatever we see today, wherever we are today in terms of science, technology, is a part of research. Whatever we will talk about in terms of the new contributions that are there, somebody did lay a foundation to it. So however small the foundation may be, but it does contribute to the field. And yes, people tend to build on and recognize it in a more elaborate manner. So contributing to the nation is again very important. Again, how do we really do research? I believe right from Professor J.D. Agarwal to the other speakers, they've been really talking about a lot about how to go about doing research. So these are a little bit of my inputs in terms of how do we do researches. One, we need to really bring about a basic instinct of inquisitiveness, the curiosity that we have in terms of dealing with a particular field. So it's not like research just suddenly happens, or you just want to write a paper, so you want to be doing a research. But you need to be inquisitive, curious about a certain set of things that you want to do about, and which requires that you actually understand your aptitude, you understand what you like reading, how, what makes you skip 10 pages and not recognize that the time has gone by. And, and you just tend to be there for whatever kind of literature you can get a hold on, and what interests you specifically. So be inquisitive about what is going on, how is it going about, and things like that. So again, very important aspect in knowing your own aptitude, finding your own aptitude, being passionate about it, is reading the literature that is there, which different scholars have written. Now, what happens is, when I've seen many research scholars come through, or the other people who are there, they don't find it easy to really relate to the top journal publications that are there, though they want to publish themselves in the top journals. But when they're reading through it, because the advanced level research which is done, they find it difficult to grasp it. So my suggestion to many new researchers or many new people who are wanting to research is that don't get bogged down with the difficult terms that are there. One needs to start reading through them. And as you read through the large number of papers which are there, so read through the papers, gather a little bit of the references which is there, go to those other papers, try understanding what these papers really talk about, understanding what the different scholars in different dimensions have been put through, and then you will be able to appreciate the different aspects which are given in the contributions made at the top journals or at the other forums that you might have been listening to. Again, it is important that when you're doing a research, outline the issues that interest you. So if you want to go in a specific field, what particular aspect interests you? Prepare a bibliography on the work of your specific interest. Read extensively, because a lot of times what happens is, when we don't read, we may not know that possibly this was not to be taken as a variable, or this was possibly already researched and it has been declined through, or what we are going to be doing is has already been an established fact by a large number of researchers which we are not going to prove any specific point, or we are not really leading to any new contributions that are there. Again, it's important that whatever you're wanting to understand, develop, you need to know that it is likely to contribute to the field. So identify the gaps in the literature. What particular aspects have the scholars in the past not really addressed? Where have they left the lacunae? And how do you plan to contribute it? Do you want to bring about an empirical research? Do you plan to become a theoretical research? Do you want to bring about a conceptual framework? What kind of a framework are you wanting to develop? Develop a research plan, which includes the time plan as to how much time you're wanting to spend on the specific research. Again, while recognizing the emerging issues, while recognizing what your field area academicians are also working on, interact with people, attend conferences, attend academic discourses, speak to people, because usually if people say in isolation there is better research, but the fact is when you interact with people, you know about their ideas, you know what they're researching about, how they're researching about, which methodology they are following, which particular test did they do, where did they get our data, you do get a little easy in terms of how you're about to go about making your research. Maybe a particular data, how did they address the missing issue, missing values over there? How did they address the extreme values over there? Which particular frames did they look at? Which particular tests did they move from one to another, and so forth? Again, it's important that you identify the journal study area, choose your research topic, formulate and plan and the methodology that is there, collect the data, analyze it, interpret it through the different tests which are there, and then present your findings. So there's an entire research cycle which actually goes through in terms of bringing about your research. Again, what one needs to recognize is that publishing is an art. It is an art which one learns through a slow and a gradual process. And while one learning it and evolving through the process, one needs to know that what is an acceptable form. Like Professor Asher said that, you know, there are point of views which are accepted. There are point of views which are not accepted. There are things which are probably in circulation. There are things that are not in circulation. So let's say you probably want to research a topic which is very far off from what the journals are publishing. You might not really receive an acceptance through it. So it's always best to look at different set of journals which are there, browse them, try to understand what are they publishing, what are the particular advanced levels they have already reached, which particular contributions do they consider as seminals, which particular references do they look at, and identify in your fields which particular dimensions would you be interested in researching. Then again, all journals are not suitable, as Professor Banu said, that you don't choose a wrong journal. You choose a journal which suits your requirement, which suits your particular research interest, which suits your research plan that is there. So choose the journal. So if there is a journal on law, then and your work is on law, then choose a journal of law rather than choosing a journal of finance. So if you submit it in journal of finance, automatically it doesn't get accepted. Again, there are journals which are looking at US data as against Indian data. So if you are actually submitting a work on Indian data, they may not be they're not probably likely to accept the particular work, even if it's a good work, it's got a good data, it's got right research, everything right. But probably they're not looking at the Indian market, and their audiences don't work on Indian market. So it is really not possible for them to publish on Indian data. Again, while you are training your research, understand the submission process, whichever journals you're looking at. So you don't pinpoint one particular journal, I'm going to publish in this particular journal. But you look at a different set of journals which are there, look at their submission processes that are there. What do they want? Train your research to meet those particular submission guidelines. Look at the journals in terms of whether they accept more empirical works, whether they accept more theoretical works, whether they accept, even there are certain journals which accept bibliographical works, or there are journals which accept literature review works, and so forth. Understand what are the emerging trends in the field. Draw a basic agreement in terms of your research paper with respect to the format of the paper. There should be no spelling mistakes, which is an eyesore in most cases. Technical definitions need to be correct, citations need to be correct, quotes in terms of the literature review need to be given in the proper manner. People whom you're quoting in the literature review, their references need to be available at the back, which is one of the important criteria which many journals look at. While you're referring to people's work, refer to the people's work whose work has been published in those particular journals. Also look if the editorial works have been in that particular area and have been recognized, that has been done. Whether is it related to your work? If it is related, try quoting that as well if it is needed in the research or not. So citations are a very important part. Formatting your tables, figures, data, scope of your research, which meets the particular journal, is important. Now, a lot of times journals don't require the tables to be fitted into the particular paper, but want tables to be fitted outside the thing, like an appendix. So you don't bog people down with the tables or the data particularly, but they look at what are the inferences which are there. So a lot of times people think that they're using softwares like SPSS, eViews, and they've done a great job by just putting the data and getting the data out, and they without even bringing about the inferences, try to submit the papers that are there. They are not really going to be accepted at any level of the journals which are there, unless you bring about right inferences which are there and you use the particular large relevant samples that are there, and present the your submissions in the right ethical manner. They're not really likely to be accepted for publication. So these are certain aspects which you need to basically draw a certain amount of an agreement with. Again, it's very important. A lot of times researchers tell me, why do we need to really publish with our supervisors? Why do we need to publish with somebody else? Or at times you would see a research paper with 10 names where particularly the contribution is not really in line with 10 contributors that are there. So a lot of times it is good to have co-authors. So when you're looking for co-authors, why do you need co-authors or you need supervisors? Is because these people have experience in life. They have been doing research for a very long time. They have an insight into the data. They have an insight into how do you interpret the data. If they've been publishing in different journals, they know exactly how do you outline, what do you make relevant, what do you don't make it relevant, how do you make it relevant, how do you don't make it relevant, and things like that. They also know which nitty-gritties would the editorials look at, which nitty-gritties would the editorials not look at, and so forth. Now, knowing your editors is also very important in terms of their perspective. So when you're looking at co-authors, mentors, and supervisors in that field, they are a guiding force in bringing about, a very important contribution as to how do you really outline your research, guide your research, work your research. So, so when people question, why should I put my supervisor's name? The fact is the supervisor is guiding you in the right direction to put it in the proper format, which is necessary. So again, associating with contributors also, when you're trying to pick up contributors while you're going into conferences or academic discourses, and you've seen people who have been publishing in different journals, you can speak to them and you can ask them and you can relate to them and interact with them and understand if they are wanting to work with you and contribute in the same field. Again, consistency of data is important. Where you're picking up the data from, how you're picking up the data from, what particular sample size you're using. A lot of people look at the time frames that you're being picked up, especially in questionnaires, especially in empirical works that are there. Again, is the data sources correct or not? How have you handled missing values? How have you handled extreme values? And so forth. Again, pick up large and relevant samples. Large does not mean that it should not be representative. It needs to be representative rather than large, which is very important. Again, what are you aiming at? Are you aiming at challenging an already existing work, an existing theory, an existing law, already existing premise? Or you wanting to support the already existing evidence and add a new dimension to it? What are you planning to do is what your objective should really clearly identify, and thereby you can then work on your research methodologies. Another important aspect is go for peer reviews. Now, one way is you send an emails to your peers and say that I'm working on this particular thing, I want your opinion on it, which you can do it with different editors in different journals, which can also hear, but they're extremely busy to give you a view about it. So a lot of times people you've met on conferences are very good. Going and presenting in different seminars, conferencing, soliciting comments becomes essential. Again, presentation in conferences, getting feedbacks is again a very important aspect. Now, a lot of people don't consider questions as very important, but if you can, when you're presenting research and people question you or people ask questions, that's the best thing to happen to a researcher. Why? Because that means the person has probably heard completely what you're talking about and has interest in what you're speaking, and he can probably add some dimensions to what your research is all about. So while taking feedbacks, be more positive. Even if somebody says you probably not worked at all, that is also positive feedback, so that you can probably look at something which you can ask him, what should I have probably added in this that would have made you consider it a little more of an effort on my end. Soliciting comments from scholars from different respective fields, so not necessarily from your own field, but you can get dimensions from different fields. So probably if you have friends in other interrelated areas, speak to them, look, get a particular dimension from them, and also sometimes adds value to your research. Again, developing a research paper, it's very important as a researcher when you're wanting to publish. There are certain journals which look in for a particular scheme of manner in which you're supposed to be there. Every journal does look in for a certain amount of a schematic manner in which they're wanting to publish their papers that are there. So you can browse through different journals, see what is there. Now again, I would like to say is whether your paper is rejected or whether your paper is accepted, it is nothing like a bad research. It is possible that a particular research is not accepted versus a particular research needs more effort versus a research which has been probably made a lot of contributions and so forth. So, you have people like Harry Markowitz, whose thesis was rejected thrice before he really got in, got to publish his, or let's say get his doctorate for himself, and he did become a Nobel laureate. So you do have Galileo, who was hanged for his new research, which was there, which was not acceptable by people. So not necessarily that something that you research about gets immediately accepted. So any new idea, any new thing may not receive acceptance, but probably there are different people who can identify why it is not accepted, how it can be accepted, or belong to a particular set of contributions which can make it more acceptable, more admissible by a set of people. Again, literature review is what is more important. So first is an introduction, which is preparing a background work. Why are you doing the study? Why? What is important? Creating an interest in your particular research paper. Then doing a literature review, looking in for gaps, identifying your research questions clearly, objectively, and pinpointing them there. Doing the research methodology, clearly identifying your samples, time frames, variables which are core, peripheral, control, bringing about the selection of the models which are there. If you're developing a model, why are you developing a model, how is it contributing, and so forth. Then as analysis and interpretation, conclusion, and then very important aspect is limitation and the scope for future research. So this is a very brief outline, not necessarily everybody follows it, but something what a lot of people look at and how they want to prepare a research paper. So these are a certain set of aspects which I would like to say are important in terms of how you go about publishing in different journals, how you look at different journals, how do you identify things which are important for yourselves. And again, what is important is be inquisitive, be curious, be passionate, and try to do more and more about reading so that you can understand what is the new fields and you can do research about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yamini, for that insight. And we would be now, I'm skipping Saurabh for now. And in any case, Saurabh, I will request you to add your comment while you sum up the summary before us. Joshua, in any case, is not able to join, and even N. Bhanumurthy is not. But I thought before I introduce our valedictory speaker, who is has had research as a core at heart, I thought I must share this thing with you. I know Professor Agarwal has part of his presentation still left out. Maybe we'll have to have a special session with him, and or maybe we can take it next time if Professor Agarwal permits before we go on to presentation, because given the time frame, I would like to refrain, and I would like our valedictory speaker to actually give his address and then summarize Saurabh. So we're already 3 hours up in the the webinar. But I thought I must share this with you. This was something which came up in 2004, which was by a gentleman called Aaron, based out of central US, where he raised this question about the Nobel Prize. Incidentally, got out a choice, my choice he raised, as to all his choices were. And this was about 7-8 people, he says, and one of them, he says, one should not win the Nobel Prize as well. So out of this list, that particular year, Edward Prescott got the Nobel Prize in 2004. And that's when this list actually, after this award was given, went off the air. So the list was there for almost about 3-4 months, from I think about September or so, going up to almost when the announcement was made, but then it disappeared. But this becomes important because this list has about 4 people who have got Nobel Prize since then, 2004 to 2020. We've had Paul Krugman got it, Eugene Fama got it, and so on and so forth. So these were the people who were identified, and we are happy that Professor Agarwal's name also featured in this for finance and development, being based in India, being based here, trying to contribute in terms of developing research and structures. We were able to do that. So what I wanted to point out here was, it's not necessary that you need to be in the United States, or you need to be in the UK, or you need to be in some of those Ivy League institutions only, that only then can you have research contributions being recognized by international agencies or worldwide. But when you have people who want to do research and there is a high impact factor, this is how we see that. And his name featuring up did make us feel proud of the fact that the institute, this work, his contribution to the field of stochastic goal programming approach, and various other models which he has developed have taken place, because large part of his work has actually been implemented and has seen real life. So I thought I should bring this up before my colleagues. Now I would like to move on and first introduce our valedictory keynote speaker today. Weerakoon, as I said, has been on the board with the Banking Frontiers, which is an award committee on banks, and I was fortunate to have been introduced to him there, and we have known each other for almost about 6-7 years now, since we got Banking Frontiers came into existence with discussion with me, with that the ones who run it, and Manoj and Babu, and they actually discussed and created that about 8-10 years back, and I've been on their board since then as part of the judging committee as well. His Excellency has been a former Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. His career with Central Bank retired from the Bank of Deputy Governor in 2009 after serving that institution for nearly 40 years. While in the bank, he has been involved with almost all kinds of areas of central banking, including economic research, monetary policy, fiscal system stability, provident fund, currency issues management, public debt, rural credit banking, and initiated setting up the Sri Lanka's Accounting and Audit Standards as the chairman of the Sri Lanka's Accounting and Audit Standards Monitoring Board between 2000 and 2008. He was also present as served as an adjunct faculty at the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand, and provides his services as a visiting lecturer in University of Siri, sorry, I can't pronounce that name, maybe I want to call it wrong, and a postgraduate Institute of Management Sri Lanka and Weerakoon University in Prabha University in Thailand. He is also president of the Business School of Management, which offers both undergraduate and postgraduate degree, UK University of Lancaster and Banu University of Sri Lanka. There are a large number of other credits. He received a large number of awards, but I thought I should introduce his basic introduction, and we are eagerly looking forward for his valedictory address. I would request him to kindly give his valedictory remarks and address now. Thank you. Just a second. Let me just
okay, thank you very much, Professor Aman, for having me to deliver this valedictory address today. I indeed enjoyed a lot by listening to all the academia from all around the world whom we have gathered, and specifically Professor Banu and Professor Mukul, who had been known to me when I was in Central Bank days. He came out to Sri Lanka to advise us on how to develop the social security system in early 2000s. I think he can still remember it. And so the present topic that you have chosen for the webinar is a very timely and opportune topic, publish or perish. Because we have this pair of opposites, for many other things like produce or perish, export or perish, save or perish, invest or perish. And now we have extended it to publish or perish, because as all the academics who addressed us before me had emphasized the need for communicating what we have learned to rest of the world in a very in a language which could be understood by them. And for that purpose, the main vehicle available to us is to publish. Now, publications come in different forms, as you know, many of you had presented here. They can be A-star journals, or some newspapers, some journals which are dedicated for the layman of the people. So likewise, whatever it may be, what matters to us in the present day is to not to keep the knowledge with us, but to share the knowledge with other people. And in that sense, I think all the resource persons you had assembled here, they had advised the prospective researchers as to how they should start their research programs and how they should set about writing their research, and also choosing journals which they might think that they could be able to publish. Now, in that sense, I think Professor Jacky, I think, broke the ground, saying that a beginner should not try to publish his papers in highly reputed journals, but if he start with a C grade journal, that would be sufficient to begin with, but later on he would be able to move up and gradually make an impact. The most important thing that we have to keep in our mind is that all the research, all the academics who made the presentation here, they said that at the ultimate aim of whatever the research that we do, the aim is to create an impact in society. To create an impact in society, it should be understood, whatever we publish should be understood by the policymakers on the one hand, and they should be understood, and most importantly, they should be understood by the general public on the other, because one mistake that we make is that when we publish our papers in quality journals, they are not to the they don't reach the general public, to whom whatever we prescribe matters, because it happens in countries, even in a country like USA, you can find right now what is happening there. The reason is that even though many research papers have been published by US academics in quality papers or newspapers, but they have not gone to general public, and that is why we find lots of chaos in the streets today. And it is happening in other countries also. It is typical to India, typical to Sri Lanka, typical to Australia, typical to Japan, typical to China, for any country, because if we keep the people outside the perimeter of the knowledge that we have actually gathered for ourselves, it has no any social impact. Here, I think one particular thing that we have to keep in our mind is that research today is highly quantitative, and it's based on models, and the model building helps us to measure the research output precisely, and tell the prospective other people, other researchers, how we have arrived in that. But of course, when we use this quantitative method, of course, there are certain defects in that, because the mathematical building of models, they have, I think, at least 3 defects. The one defect is that, first of all, they will confuse the reader. Second one is they will frighten the reader. Third one, in most of the readers, it will create a guilty complex, because if the person cannot understand whatever that has been written, there is a guilty complex in the reader, and it therefore allows the researcher also to escape from the criticisms of the general public. One good example has been provided by the late Carl Sagan, the astrophysicist, in his broadcast brain. And this relates to a story that had taken place during the time of Empress Catherine of Russia. There had been a French encyclopedist called Diderot. Diderot had visited the court of Empress Catherine, and he had been, telling all the people, I know there is no God. And since, Russia is a country which is, pretty much, the devoted to the divine powers, he became an embarrassment to Empress Catherine also, and they wanted to silence him. Then, according to Carl Sagan, Euler had, devised a scheme. He had said, tell that Diderot that I have a mathematical proof of the existence of God. And there was this debate. And on the debate day, the Euler came and he said, Monsieur, A plus B to the power n, whole thing divided by n is equal to x. Now this is the existence of God. Disprove it. Now this is, encyclopedia. He was not a mathematical savvy fellow. That fellow just, fled the court of Empress Catherine. And, what happened was he was actually duped by Euler, frightening him by showing him a mathematical equation. So this is happening to us also in our day-to-day research. When we do so, when we present our research papers in quality journals, what we do with all kinds of these mathematical models, we are keeping the general public away from the reach of the knowledge that we have gathered. And that doesn't create the impact that we are talking about here. For that purpose, what I suggest is that we should have these quality journals which should publish research papers addressed to the other researchers who can understand the same language, same thing, but at the same time, we must have a way of communicating our views to people outside that particular galaxy, and so that people would be able to understand it. That is the best impact that we can make. Now, for example, I know in India, for I think about, say, now 60 years, the Indian economists have been saying that the subsidies are bad. If you give subsidies, it will create the kind of social impact called the moral hazard, and the subsidies will multiply themselves, and finally they become burden to the entire nation. Therefore, we must, give the subsidies by selecting the people who deserve it. But as we know, every general election in India and every general election in Sri Lanka, every general election in Pakistan, every general election in Bangladesh, every general election in Nepal, we are actually promoting the delivery of subsidies to people because people can't understand. That is because we have kept them away from the main research that we have done. I think in this sense, the today's webinar had given the inputs to prospective researchers how they should start their research. But at the same time, they will have to understand the fact that the ultimate aim of our spreading knowledge is not just to get this promotion or tenured lecturership in the university, but to create an impact in society, to create an impact in society, communicate with the people. When you communicate it, you must have this dual communication system. One system where you will communicate with your fellow researchers in highly technical language. The second tier of communication, you have to do it with the members of the public as well as the politicians. So in that way only we would be able to create an impact. I think if you look at religions, all the religious masters have done the same thing. The religious masters have not gone into the members of the public by preaching the high powered formulas, mathematical models and so forth. They had the remarkable ability of simplifying those mathematical models into simple language so that the general public would be able to understand. And that is why we have more followers in religion than in economics. For example, when I write something in newspaper, there are only 5,000 or 6,000 people who would write it. But when a religious master preaches the same thing, the number of people who would read it, runs into hundreds of thousands. And, sometimes I feel jealous of those people. But of course, I have to understand that is my mistake because I have not been able to reach the general public. So this is, I think what we have done, and the IIF has, done a great job by assembling these academics into a single forum and helping them to make presentations for the prospective researchers as to how they should survive without perishing themselves by publishing their papers in quality journals. But at the same time, I will emphasize the fact that it's necessary for all of us to develop a communication method where we would be able to communicate with the general public. So thank you very much and good night to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Weerakoon. It's very kind, and I think that's very important because I wanted you to come in specifically from the perspective of a central banker who is a practitioner who actually puts things on ground. And not only that, you've been central banker, you've been even advising afterwards and actually writing on a practical note every now and then. And that's where it's important that, you know, what we do as research, as finance or any other field of area, we do research, can it be put to practical use? And I think since you put that in place, being a researcher yourself, so we thought it would be great if we could have an address from you, giving that practical biasness. I will now move to, please do stay for another, you stayed throughout, please do stay for another 5-10 minutes more. When Saurabh finishes, we'll have just a few questions, 2 or 3 questions before we end the session for today. I will now introduce Saurabh, and who is going to be speaking now on the briefing up the whole scenario about what is, you know, how things are moving in terms of research, what people have said, and then we will close the session for today. Just a second. I'm unable to, I'll just read out about him briefly, and then we will have him. In any case, he is currently the principal of our College of Commerce and Management Studies, and he is currently also the Associate Editor of Finance India. Apart from these, he's holding the member board of SOCHM, the body which actually is one of the largest chambers in the country, and he's also board member of one of the largest organizations the government of India has, called the Employee State Insurance Corporation of India, which is one of the large corporations in India looking at servicing people and bringing up hospitals and various other activities, which is under Ministry of Labour. He's also member governing body of the DNBWE, which is called CBEC, another body which is there. He is a visiting faculty to IIM Rohtak and Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, and various other positions which he hold. I was sorry I'm not able to bring up the information which I was wanting to pull out from the web, but in any case, I will now move on to Saurabh to kindly share his views along with summarizing of what we have had today for the webinar workshop come faculty development program on how to research. Saurabh, to you now.
Thank you, Professor Aman. I have just shared a screen. Is it visible?
It is visible. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I must thank IIF for organizing on such an important topic, how to research, publish or perish. And after such a great speakers, I'll just try to sum up in another 5-7 minutes, a small presentation. So as Dr. Banu really pointed out, you can see this is my ORCID ID. So this is what something like an ORCID ID looks like. Now what I have done is today we heard a lot about what is the impact of research. So what I did was something which has been affecting me and I have been doing research on. I thought, let me share with that in 5-7 minutes in the most simplest manner I can. And practically, you know, in 1991, we divide Indian economy, you know, pre-liberalization and post-liberalization. And now I think researchers would divide research into pre-COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. So practically what I can say is, when we start with research, the first and foremost thing is what area interests you most and what is most upcoming. So practically what research I did was, and along with 2 of other colleagues, is to see some industries, particularly hotels, get extremely, hospitality, hotels, tourism, they get extremely affected by such pandemics. So practically we did an event study. So first we have to decide what kind of study we want to do. So we have taken in the sense that event study would be more suitable. Then we go ahead to see practically what should be our benchmark. So practically we said let's a big base, S&P CNX Nifty would be our base. And then we try to see, okay, cumulative abnormal returns, pre-COVID period and post-COVID. And we study this for a period of a month. Now, why we took CNX Nifty 50? Because it's one of the widest possible indexes. Then whenever we're doing some sort of event study, what is most important is the event date. Now this is again, whenever a researcher is doing, how he would pinpoint the data periods. This is a big question. So practically there has to be some global benchmark. And as you see, we took 11th March as the event date. The reason why 11th March is because that is the date when WHO declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. And practically after that, our Indian stock market started falling. Now, then we have to decide upon the event window. Practically, what do you feel would be the period when the impact would happen on hotel industry? So what we do is we create different 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. Then we decide upon, as has been said, what is the model we have to follow. So we follow the OLS MM model, GARCH 1-1 model, and then we try to see the standardized cumulative abnormal returns of each, the hotel and the tourism industry, both as company-wise and industry-wise. Now, when we have to choose upon the sample, so what we did was we took out the companies out of S&P 500 who are into hotels and tourism, and we did our research work on them. What we found out, in plus minus 10 days, the negative return was only 1%. But what a paper by NBER said was, due to COVID-19, highest possible volatility has been observed in US stock market. And that is the reason why they stopped trading. Now, this was similar kind of variability was observed in India. Our Nifty 500 fell down by almost 22.94%. That is making it approximately a very right time to get into, if you are an investor, to buy. Now, the abnormal negative returns, when we take it to 10 days, were negative 9.7%, 10 days prior to the event, which significantly increased to 21.99% post-COVID. So practically it increased further. And when we increased the window period to almost 20 days, so we decided, let's see what is the impact of 20 days. The impact, you see, increased. The negatively 22.51%. And we estimated cars for 30 days prior to this, and when we took the event, the study to 30 days, prior 30 days it was not significant, but post COVID-19 announcement, extremely negative returns were observed, and particularly we observed abnormal returns for lemon tree hotels. Now, a lot of the panelists today, all father figures in their area, really said what is the relevance of this research. And I will come on to the relevance of this research. If anyone in this audience is trading in the stock market, would know that this lemon tree stock has 20 lakh buy orders, but no sell order. Because now this research we finished in April 15th, traders in the market already knew it. And they realized that this hotel has reached to a very low point and this is the right time to buy. Not only this, other hotels also, there was Chalet Hotel, we've taken 6-7 companies. So practically hotel industry stocks have been recommended by many traders, saying that in coming times, as the hotel industry reopens, it gives you the opportunity to make a return in stock market. So practically, on one hand, we at Indian Institute of Finance are applying financial models on data, applying our statistical techniques, but at the same time, this knowledge can be used for making abnormal positive returns if acted wisely. So this is the purpose. Then essentially what one point I feel is important is whenever one does research, one should see what are the studies which are similar and have had similar results. And practically we saw that for all these studies, our results were similar. But then there is always two sides of the coin. And as a successful researcher, you don't want to be on the side where there are less researchers, because such research is likely to be rejected, right? But there are some people who say, no, we must swim against the tide. Yes, there are many researchers who swim against the tide, but our research is with the tide, and similar to so many researches which we studied and found similar, how these researches helped us. With these researches, we found the methodology. Like, you know, I don't know international, but in India, we have something called as khichdi. So what we do is we mix all the methodologies to create a super methodology with us, which may likely to be accepted. So we add on brick by brick to the existing structure of methodologies, and that makes up better and relevant research. And this is what, you know, we saw legendary Harry Markowitz did. He combined the knowledge of correlation and weighted average to create the modern portfolio theory. A simple regression model was made a part of CAPM, which more factors were added, and the pharma and French three-factor model came. So while you could take a stand in research, we have the liberty to take one stand at one point of time and take another stand at another point. And why I say so is one of the founder editorial board of members, Franco Modigliani, he had gave the legendary theory on value of the firm. And at one point of time, he said debt does not really affect the value of the firm. And later, he contradicted his own research work when a lot of people started working that no, because of tax advantage, debt really adds value. So good research is one thing, you know, you can take two stands, unlike, in these movies, whereby it is either good or bad. You know, in research, you can take two different stands. It's just that the data should be available with you to prove the both stands. Now, my papers could be, you know, we saw Dr. Banu talking about SSRN. They're available on SSRN. Very good important thing is whenever you do research, do get reviewed by professors across the globe. And as you can see, Professor Allen reviewed some work. Professor Joel from University of Baltimore reviewed some work and has given positive feedback. This not only helps you understand the subject deeper, but also inbuilds a confidence in you that if there is something good and best in research, it is you who are going to do it. Now, this research was done by me, by Dr. Megha and Dr. Renu Ghosh, and I would say certain points, you know, certain limitations which we see as researchers. One is data. Access to data, you know, for researchers, access to Bloomberg data means good research. Or, you know, but the best possible research, database research is Capital Market Line or CMI Probit. That limits the possibility of publication. Also, Professor Aman talked about Professor Manuel Armada, who is present in the audience. I was talking to him, And he said, this Professor Manuel is extremely strong in econometrics, in mathematical finance, in statistics. But now he is also learning algorithms and engaging with people which can work on predictive analysis and algorithm. So I think research is a lifelong process. In 2013, when I got my PhD, I thought it's done, but it's not. It was just the starting. I realized is the start of research. Now I understand learning, reinforcement learning, artificial intelligence, Python for finance, Tableau, predictive analysis, coding is what is required in finance, and that I think would make you publish. And I'm surely I know those people who are skipping their dinner and keeping up with us even at 9:40 in the night, they don't want to perish. So now I would do the official duty that was given to me. It was an extremely interesting session. I really thoroughly enjoyed. First we heard Professor J.D. Agarwal. He talked about Galileo, Archimedes. He talked about the forms of research, the research design, research supervisor and researcher. How does their knowledge and relationship makes an impact on the quality of research. Then we had Professor Jacky. He was very kind to host me at the Faculty of Business Administration, MACAU, and I'm really thankful to him. Interestingly, different regions need different research. And in MACAU, I realized MBA is not relevant. MBA casino management is relevant. So in MACAU, not research, but research in casinos is relevant. And that's what he talked. He talked about the objective of research. He talked about of his challenge with 4 years of no publication because he submitted to A category journals, and he said, no, diversification is important, A, B, C, D. Focus on all categories. He talked about case analysis method of research. He talked about how portfolio analysis has shifted to value at risk analysis and now to artificial based portfolio optimization, which I've added to. He talked about review from editors. He talked about good peer review. Then we had Professor George's Parentie, and it was a very he added the color to our seminar, and he talked about Israel, and he talked about how research can help you travel the world. He talked about benefits of doing research in Israel, and so next we had, he talked about research undertaken in the 1950s and 60s with constraints, and he really pinpointed, teaching is separate and research was separate in 1950s and 60s. I don't know, I feel that is today also. There are some category who are good researchers and there are good teachers. And what if you want to publish and be existent, you need to be good at both. So that's the challenge now for today's generation. He talked about incentives for research. He talked about permanent type of positions and a lethargy that comes into it. He talked about that when you submit your papers, you should be having an understanding towards editors. He talked about understanding research publication puzzles, which I think is very important. He talked about poor in econometric statistics. The good thing is now UGC SWAYAM platform have launched lots of MOOCs whereby you can upgrade your statistics, your econometrics, your research methodology. These are free programs, slides, videos are available, and Government of India is doing a very fine job in getting them online. So figure out individual strengths, he said. He also talked about ethical standards and preventing plagiarism. He talked about how you can communicate research to wider audience and specifically policy makers. He talked about creating a core group of 2 to 3 people. So this is, I think, very significant suggestions made by Sir. And indeed, it was a very enlightening session. Then we had Professor Banu, and practically her presentation and her PPT were like blockbuster movie in Hindi. Great presentation. You know, in India, everything is related to Bollywood. So your PPT, I can see already all speakers requesting Dr. Banu for her PPTs, which I of course feel are $1 million reservoir. She talked about resources available for free. She talked about the 100 research rules. The only thing that I feel is a challenge is, after reading these rules, can I be able to apply it? Not sure, but certainly our listeners would. Another thing she talked about, questions that have impact. Now this is very important, and I do remember one of our editorial board members, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who is currently the vice chairman of Niti Aayog. He said at the Indian Economic Association, do research which is of use to the government for policy making. And I think that is very relevant. Dr. Banu talked about Medley, SSRN, ResearchGate, academia, pitchingresearch.com. She talked about how one should structure, what are the mistakes that should be avoided. She talked about journal finders and elsewhere, Springer, Wiley. I myself have used their services, but I don't know why articles get rejected quite often, even after using the finder. But to the readers, best of luck. Follow guidelines, follow the feedback professionally. I've seen, just because you receive a large length of review comments, which we give in Finance India, and we're popular for that, many people get scared with those large list of review comments. They are for the benefit of you and the entire country and research community. She talked about predatory journals, Capel's list. So how to write a lot. She talked about certain books. She talked about various academies that are there, whether it is Elsewhere, Author Services, Emerald Publishing. I've been engaged with Palgrave, and let me tell you, they really suck the blood out of a researcher. Extensive, and most of them are actually based out of India. So practically, they only do the work of coordinating, but real tools, the AI-based tools on your research paper are being applied by people sitting in Bangalore and Chennai. We have developed in India such softwares which help in editing. LaTeX is one such software, not discussed, but that is available. She talked about publications and researcher ID, and now most of the quality publications have asked for ORCID. I didn't know till the time some research publication asked me, and that's the reason why my slide had one. Okay, she also talked about Turnitin and iAuthenticate that can help check plagiarism. I think our entrepreneurs should come up with a software that is made free of cost available. Both these softwares are paid. And I think when we say plagiarism needs to be removed, I think some Indian entrepreneur should come up and say, like Zoom is made available, like Say Namaste is made available, plagiarism check software, not limited to 1,000 words, will be made available to researchers free of cost. And I think that is very important, which NITs and IIM should attempt to work at. Then we had Professor Metri. He talked about application of research to society, business, and policy making. And he talked about applied research, more important. He also talked about artificial intelligence, and it took 50 years to get it into practice. He talked about NITs working on making better roads in villages. And I think that's the reason why our minister, Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, is actually laying down the roads much faster than any other government that has done in the past. Very important quote, what is interesting is not relevant, and what is relevant is not interesting. And that is the reason I read the IIM case studies a lot, because they are not only interesting, but also relevant. And my classes are filled with such case studies. And I think IIM is doing a great job by publishing those case studies. And they do take into account Professor Metri's idea, I think, very relevant and practical case study oriented research in those case studies. Then we had Dr. Yamini Agarwal, whose IIT intellect was visible in her high quality discussion on why do research, how to do research, about research proposal, research activity, written content, claim research for publication, and then how to add value to research. So she said all of it, but I hope the Indian government is not listening to us, because if they're listening, they might just put value added tax or GST if you add value to your research. So research should be tax exempt. And then in the end, we also had His Excellency Wijewardena, who made a very, very, very, very important point, which all people who have lived and served for 20, 30, 40 years in research always talk about, is the purpose of knowledge is to share knowledge. Like I presented one research paper and I talked about hotel stocks. I talked about financial models. I talked about what our findings were, but the relevance is hotel stocks will be available at an undervalued value. So that's the impact which we require. So he talked about impact on society. He talked about high quality papers, and then in US there are lots of them, but the benefit is not going to local public. And I think that's really the relevance, because had research been done at the right time, America could have prevented a catastrophe they're suffering now. May God bless America. We are America's best friends. So then we talked about no social impact. We talked about research using quantitative and model building. But he said that the complexity adds to the guilt. And it's the right time, by attending IIF seminar and webinar, I think you would be able to reduce or remove your guilt. I wish all the listeners and thank them regularly, because we have exceeded 1 hour, and despite getting multiple calls, I decided to ignore them. Thank you, and I would like now ask Professor Aman to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Saurabh, for that insight and the vote of thanks, as well as introducing. I have a very dear friend, Emmanuel Ambada, who has been a full professor of Portugal, the only full professor of Portugal for a very long time. And he organized the first Portugal Finance Conference in Portugal for a long time, and I've known him for ages. I would like him to make 2-3 minutes, because I'm going to have him in my next research conference speak for at least 15-20 minutes for full. But I would request if he would give 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes of his talk and his insight, because he's here all the way from Portugal with us today. Such a pleasant surprise to see you, Manuel.
Thank you, Aman. Very nice to listen to you and almost all. Unfortunately, I could not hear you right from the beginning, because I had to travel from Braga to Oporto, a place that you know very well. So, but from what I did listen, I did enjoy very much, because I really teach this topic for many years in different countries, different universities, but I would have one or more ideas to add to everything, but in the end, well, nothing more to say, but to thank you for this very kind invitation. And on the 20th, I will be there with a challenging topic that you did mention, artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, which are very recent, very rarely applied in our fields. My field is finance, of course, but I hope to add something to open some avenues for further research, because this is being applied in our area very recently, almost very few people indeed. inviting me, and I would be very glad to have you here again on 2021 on our Portuguese Finance Network. Your father and brother, they both know very well. They were my guests at that time, 20 years ago.
Yes.
So I will be the president once again. And also at the FMA in England, it will be in England, to see you again there. So all in all, thank you so much for inviting me for these last few words. Thank you.
No, you know, Manuel, for everybody, Manuel is like a father figure in Portugal.
Up to you, Aman.
Yes, I was saying yes. Thank you, Manuel. It's great to have you. I'm very pleased. I'm seeing you after a long time. It's such a good thing. We keep connecting, talking by email. Yes. Are you able to hear me? Hello, Manuel, are you able to hear me? There seems to be some internet lag there, but in any case, as I said, Manuel, it's great pleasure to have you around. We would be now opening the house for questions if there are any. We still have some of the speakers. Metri had to leave because he was in office and he had to go back to home. So I told him that why don't we go back? A couple of others had to leave, but then we do have our Honorable Valedictory Speaker, Dr. Weerakoon, as well as we have Mukul with us joined here, and we would be happy to have any questions which are there or any comments from any one of them. Please raise your hand or open your video and we will ask the questions, but maximum of 1 or 2 questions, and then we would like to close for today. Because it's been an exhaustive session and I can see everybody is still here, but then I can understand everybody is tired as well. I know Banu has actually cancelled her meeting which she was chairing, being the chair of the department. She cancelled it for me and she will be here with us. So it's such a great pleasure to have all of you be with us, you know, and share your views. Anyone who wants to ask a question, because someone wrote to us that we did not give an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm calling out for the last time if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll close the session for today because it's already been 4 hours as against 3 what we proposed, and we thought we'll do better this time, but we stuck to the 4-hour thing despite what we had. But it's an exhaustive session, beautiful session, and such a great pleasure of seeing all my friends on this platform. Thank you, Mukul, for having joined us. I'm not going to leave you alone because now this Corona has given me a chance to connect with you. I'm going to trouble you more in the days to come to be addressing more forums, more focused on public policy, which you have worked all through your life and have impacted millions of Indians. And as your colleague from Sri Lanka also said, you had impacted their lives as well. So you have actually created a framework which impacts. You are a person who has brought research to life. Professor Agarwal, you, all my speakers today, whether it's Jacky or anyone else, all of you have actually brought in life. I'm very thankful for staying all through 4 hours. I know it is a little torturing sitting in front of a screen, but thank you all. Thank you, Banu. Thank you, Professor Agarwal. Thank you, Metri. Thank you, Weerakoon. It's very kind of you to have stayed. All the participants who stayed all through here, I know many of them have gone now, but still a couple of them are here. Thank you, Manuel, and I will be calling you tomorrow. All of you, thank you. Namaskar. Thank you, Manuel. And as I said, I'll be troubling you more going forward, so be ready for it because I've not troubled you for a long time.
Okay. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you, Aman.
After a long time, Manuel, I'm seeing you.
Oh, Professor, how are you? Long time.
Yeah, it's pleasure seeing you here, and you're joining us, the webinar.
Thank you. And I would like to end the session now. We have a lot of store for us tomorrow. We are going to have a webinar on how to make money on stock markets. Day after in the evening, I am calling practical people to speak to you. And then we have a European Parliament member speaking on essence of life next week with us, and a tarot card reader speaking again day after on Friday evening on the essence of life. So I thought I'd just introduce those basic things and end the session today. Thank you. Namaskar, Jai Hind, and Vande Mataram.